Okay, hello and welcome to the Amherst Conservation Commission meeting. The date is December 4th, 2024, and the time is 7:02. We have all members here except Andre, who has just joined us. Welcome, Andre, and Laura will not be joining us tonight. And staff, Aaron Jock and Dave Zomek. So we are going to kick it off with the chair report. I don't have anything. I guess I'll just announce that in December we'll be meeting on the 4th today and the 18th due to holidays. And then in January we're resuming to our normal second and fourth Wednesday of the month. Aaron, do you want to just give an update on the drought? I see we have that on our agenda.
The designation has definitely gotten worse. I know we did get a little bit of rain, but it didn't change the drought designation because it wasn't a lot of um, in terms of recovering. It didn't really do a whole lot for how bad the situation is at the moment. So we're still in a let me think. I think it's a critical drought.
There's
Critical drought
critical
level
level
3.
3 drought. Yep.
Yep, as of
As of
today. I've been checking on it every day. So, and that's as of October 1st. So,
okay.
I have a question about that.
Go ahead, Alex.
With regard to the drought, one of the conditions is that wetlands can't be identified, I believe. So what do we do if somebody has identified wetlands and we need to verify that during a drought? Are we able to do that?
yeah, so it's a complicated answer. So
25 words or less.
so right now it's also winter and we have a drought, which makes it extra complicated because ordinarily if you can't use herbaceous vegetation, you would rely on hydrologic indicators. But since we're in drought conditions, the hydrologic indicators are less. So um, it makes it more challenging. And certainly, uh, in my opinion, I don't think we should be confirming wetland delineations during the period when the drought is happening and when we're in the off season. Um, if it like last season, we had a very wet winter, and so we were able to delineate, we were able to confirm because we had really strong hydrologic indicators, which gave us the ability to continue doing delineations late into the season. Um, so that's the best answer I can give you. There are other issues, like for example, confirmation of stream. So like in the instance that somebody's trying to override the presumption of a perennial stream being intermittent, that cannot be done during a drought condition. So that would be an observance that a stream is not flowing for 4 consecutive days, and during a drought that can't be done legally. So.
Aaron. So some things are for our consideration, extra consideration, and some are legal. All right. Thanks,
Thank you,
Alex,
Aaron.
for yeah. All right. I think I'm gonna hand it over to you, Alex, for our subcommittee update. Are
Okay,
you ready for that? And we're looking for a vote tonight is the end goal here.
right. So I'll just go talk about what we're going to vote on, and the rules and regulations were distributed previously, and we did receive some comments which were incorporated. And tonight we're going to vote on those rules, regulations. However, we want to take some time to make sure everybody is aware of some of the substantial change in there, and that has to do with hunting. So did everybody see that we're going to change our policy with regard to hunting on conservation land such that we will not allow hunting? And I can go through a slide to show you how our thinking proceeded, which I'd like to do. But first, I just want to say, is anybody not aware that that's included in what we're going to vote on?
I was not aware.
Okay. So we had quite a discussion over a long period of time about the matter of safety. We now have 104, I thought it was 80 miles of trails, and that's been updated to 140 miles of trails. on our conservation land, and they are used heavily. And we believe that use increased during COVID and continues. The issue of safety came up, of allowing hunting on conservation land with trails actively used wandering all through the conservation land. So what we did was we took a GIS map of all trails, and we made a 500-foot buffer on either side of each trail. And we got the 500 feet because that's what Mass Fish and Wildlife uses for the distance from an occupied structure that a firearm cannot be discharged, including a bow. So we had a basis for the 500 feet buffer. What we found, and Aaron, could you bring up that map, please? What we found was that almost all of the conservation land falls within that buffer. And we can blow this up, but this was the map we were using. And you can go through the legend there, but basically the blue is the buffer. The red lines are trails. The big thick red lines are the conservation lands. So, Aaron, could you blow up a section, just zoom in on it so people can see what we did? So as you can see, for lots of the conservation land, the entire or a great proportion of the property is within the 500-foot buffer on either side of a trail. So the object was to protect users of the conservation land from accidentally getting hurt. We've never had an accident on conservation land during the hunting season. We want to keep it that way. Hunting is allowed on other Amherst lands, water supply lands, for example, and hunting is allowed on most private lands around in Amherst unless it's posted. So the changing of the rule about hunting on conservation land does not eliminate hunting from Amherst property, and it certainly doesn't eliminate hunting within Amherst. So that was what we were trying to deal with, was an increase in the number of trails, an increase in trail use, and human safety. So we went through, I don't know how many meetings talking about this. The entire subcommittee was involved, Dave was involved, Aaron was involved. And just at first we were going to just eliminate shotgun and primitive weapons during the deer season. And that there were people who thought that from an administration standpoint, that it's very difficult to administer just bow hunting being allowed. So the decision was made to just say hunting will be prohibited on all lots. And I will say that Lawrence Swamp had a lot of green, as you can see. Lawrence Swamp is down in the lower right-hand corner. Yep. And it has a lot of green, which means there's no buffer on that property. But Lawrence Swamp has multiple parcels which are not individually named. It's just all Lawrence Swamp. So again, from an administrative standpoint, we chose not to try and keep part of Lawrence Swamp open to hunting. So anyways, that was our method that we used, and I'll just stop there and see if there's any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What made you decide to, let me just start out by saying, a lot of people depend on these lands to hunt. And there's 2 weeks, there's very little time out of the season that people would hunt these lands. But how is it that you get 500 feet again? You said from because of the distance from a home that you have to have?
Not a home.
Mhm.
Mass Wildlife has established that you cannot discharge a weapon within 500 feet of an occupied dwelling.
Yep, I know. That's the words. But what about from a road?
I think it's 150 feet.
I think you know it pretty well. Why not 150 feet?
We
I
were,
just let me just say this. I think it's a travesty that we're thinking to close uh, the public lands in Amherst to hunting. It's really got me.
I
This is
understand that.
ridiculous. You guys should have thought it out better, and my bad for not having studied it earlier. But I'm adamantly opposed to that.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add that we spent a lot of time thinking about it and we didn't take it lightly and we discussed the buffers. And I mean, maybe Alex, you can recall better than I, when we discussed the 150-foot versus the 500-foot. I mean, the position that we're coming from is the increased use on the lands and trying to be proactive rather than reactive. And
So limit
then,
the amount of people who go there then during the hunting season. How's that? Why are you going to limit the people who hunt there? This is completely done from the point of view of people who don't hunt.
well, Alex hunts. I mean, he would had a,
I
Yeah.
yeah.
buy a
Okay.
license every year, Andre, in New Hampshire
Mhm.
and Massachusetts. So that's not true.
Well, then you must have areas that you can go to, but these lands provide access to people to go to different places. The Lawrence Swamp is hunted by a whole lot of people. It, you know, you guys need to consider them too. You know, all these years and we haven't had a single accident. And now you're gonna close it because you think there might be one.
Well,
I don't think that's a terrible place to come from. I mean, I don't want to close it when there is one. That's, I think, a worse place to come from.
How many accidents have there been in this whole state over the last few years? Did you guys do any research on that?
I don't know the answer to that, but I do want to add that there are other lands in Amherst that people are hunting on. So there are private lands and there are,
Can't consider private lands as an alternative to the public land. Anybody can post their land, and there are more and more lands that are being posted in this town and around here.
Jason, I saw your hand up. Did you have something to add?
No, I was going to basically ask what Andre asked is if there's never been any accidents and uh, it seems that there's not that many throughout the state. I do agree with what Andre is saying in that it seems a little unfair to the folks who hunt land to now close the land off to those people. If probably those people have been being safe with discharging their firearms or the weapons for the last however many years.
there will be a public hearing. The vote tonight doesn't actually put it into effect. What it does is it moves it forward. It will go after December. If this remains part of the policy changes for land use, there will be a public hearing. And the public will have an opportunity to comment, be invited to comment, and we can hear from them now or then. And then we have to consider those public comments, and then the commission has to come back and vote on the entire package after the public has had a chance to comment. So this is, there are several bites at the apple on this issue.
Yeah, yeah.
Erin, go ahead.
So I just wanted to, just by way of background, there currently from the existing policies of the Conservation Commission, there was only a handful of properties that were open to hunting. And there was just doing we did do the 500-foot analysis from dwellings and the 150-foot analysis from roads. And when that analysis was done, it didn't leave very many left. It left like maybe 5 parcels that were, you know, completely outside of those buffers. So I just wanted to point that out, that there was, I want to say like maybe 5 parcels that had been historically prior to this discussion that had been open to hunting. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention was we did talk about keeping Lawrence Swamp open. It was something that I did try to advocate for in our discussions. And part of the reason why I think the commission arrived back at not having Lawrence Swamp was because hearkening back to the administration issue, that we would be saying basically only certain portions of the property were open to hunting. And that from a enforcement standpoint gets difficult, and also from a marking the property as hunting allowed or not allowed would be complicated. So I don't have a position one way or another on hunting. My partner was out deer hunting this Monday and Tuesday, so I know that it's happening right now, and I come from a family of sportsmen, so certainly wanting to consider all options. Just wanted to give the sort of an analytical backstory a little bit.
Bruce, go ahead.
Alex, would it make any sense to table this one part of the rules and regulations, ask Andre to come to our next subcommittee and discuss it in that setting and try to come up with a solution?
I'm going to hold off commenting on that for a minute.
Okay, I mean, I think if we're gonna table one thing, we should probably table the rules altogether. Alex, go ahead.
I want to say that we asked, what are other towns doing? And when you look at Shrewsbury, Pelham, all their property is open to hunting that's publicly owned. When we look at Northampton, that also has conservation land and trails, they went through the same process that we went through, and they closed their public lands to hunting, except one conservation land parcel along the Connecticut River. When we looked at Lincoln, Massachusetts, that has a lot of conservation land and trails and heavy use, they also closed their conservation land to hunting. When we looked at Concord, Massachusetts, that had the same a lot of conservation land and trails, increasing use, they closed their public land, their conservation land to hunting. So the direction that that's going in, Andre, is increased trails, increased use, and the towns departing from the traditional hunting that's always occurred. When I was a kid, we went coon hunting and deer hunting all over Concord. We went duck hunting on the Concord and the Sudbury River. Can't do that anymore. My uncles have started what's now Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, and the whole family hunted on that, and that became impossible. So it's now part of the Fish and Wildlife Service. So I have seen a great deal of change myself in where I used to be able to hunt and can't do it anymore. And that is the direction that things are going in, and we chose to err on the side of public safety. And we keep building trails, we keep inviting people to use them, they do. We've never had an accident, and we don't want one.
Okay, Dave, I'm gonna go to you.
So with regard
Wait a
to
minute.
Bruce's comment,
Bruce is there, and I'm
Okay.
there to talk too. Bruce is up first.
Yeah, okay, Dave hasn't spoken yet. Dave, do you want to just go first?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much time you can spend on this tonight, given your full agenda, but I guess I just want to point out that this is, this is a proposal of the subcommittee. The subcommittee has been bringing the full commission parts of this document for the last few months. So the subcommittee has followed the process that it set out, and this is one proposal coming before you. With all respect, Andre, this has been on the subcommittee's agenda for, as Alex said, a number of months. We've spent a number of hours on this. And so it shouldn't be a surprise to any commission members who have been watching or paying attention to the subcommittee that we've been grappling with this. So it's a proposal coming before you. A vote tonight is a vote to move it forward, as Aaron said. Moving it forward means holding a public hearing where we can take in more feedback. You all, as the commission and staff, can take in more feedback, and then you would actually take another final vote, say sometime in January or early February, to decide whether you want to formalize this particular regulation within your whole set of rules and regulations. So there's a whole process ahead of us to do that, but there has been a lot of discussion, a lot of research, as Alex said, looking at other communities, and this does seem to be a way that many communities in Massachusetts are going. So I just want to make sure that, we give that time to kind of sink in, that this wasn't something that the subcommittee came up with in the last 2 weeks. We've been grappling with it and talking about it and doing some analysis using GIS. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Dave. So, okay, we were looking for a vote tonight, and as Dave said, this is not the end of the discussion with it, and it would go to public comment, and then we'd have another chance to revisit it. So, if someone wants to make a motion, we can do that, or you could motion to table it, I guess. Rachel, go ahead.
I support Bruce's suggestion that we pull out that section if possible to discuss a little bit further. We're already doing that with the native land acknowledgement. So I would support pulling that section out to talk about a little bit more.
Alex.
Personally, I just soon have a vote and on the whole enchilada and see where that goes and then decide what to go from there.
Okay. I mean, I'm open to hearing a motion on the floor.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to put a motion forward, being chair of the subcommittee. I move that we approve the rules and regulations as presented to the commission.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Not hearing a second. Do I have an alternative motion? Bruce, Rachel, you
I
had
move to approve
proposed
it without the no hunting.
another motion to approve without the hunting.
Second.
Okay, and specifically to table it, I think. You
Yeah.
want to clarify.
And to revisit.
Revisit,
Table and
yeah.
revisit. Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. All right, I have a motion and a second. Alex,
I'm going to abstain.
Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
I am fine with that. Okay, so we move to approve the bulk of the rules and regulations, table and reconsider the hunting. I would encourage Andre to be in contact with the subcommittee to find a time that you could join us for that conversation, and we'll reach out about the subcommittee meeting dates, which are, there's not many left, so we'll have to find one soon.
Absolutely. Thank
We
you.
meet on Tuesday at noon is our scheduled meeting. What's our next date, Aaron?
I think it's the 10th.
10th?
Think so.
Sorry, I'm a little off because our meeting dates change. The 17th of December.
That's the only one left then.
Yeah, that will probably dominate. We meet for an hour and a half, Andre?
Mm-hmm. If there's a time that you'd like to meet before then or whatever, I'd be happy to join as well. And I'll do a little research. But
I will. I'll leave it
Okay.
up to you to decide.
Yeah, well, I guess we could consider a special meeting. I don't know what's on the agenda for the 17th, but if we need to add this as a special discussion, maybe we can talk about that with staff for next week. And this will be posted on the website for any public in attendance that wants to attend the subcommittee meeting. It's at noon on a Tuesday. Next one yet to be determined if it's next Tuesday or the Tuesday after. Okay, are we fine with moving on with that? Yeah.
Just
Go ahead,
comment.
Alex.
Given that the objective is to be done by the end of December, and I've been working really hard to try and achieve that, I think a special meeting would be in order and not dominate the last meeting, the 17th, with this subject, but to try and find a time when we can meet in addition to the 17th.
Okay, so possibly
Agreed.
next week. All right. All right, we will collaborate offline, try and find a date next week where we can have a special meeting to discuss this. And again, it will be posted online. Okay, thank you. Moving on. We're at 1 minute. Is there anything we can do in 1 minute, Erin?
Yeah, I can just let you all know that both of our requests for certificate of compliance are going to be tabled tonight because I inspected and followed up on the orders, and one of the projects, some of the signage wasn't installed, and on the other project, a mitigation planting wasn't installed. So both those items will be tabled tonight.
Thanks, Erin. Okay. 7:30, moving on to our first hearing. Okay, so each hearing has 20 dedicated minutes on the agenda. The hearing structure is 5 minutes comment from staff, 5 minutes presentation by the applicant, 5 minutes for public comment or 2 per person, 5 minutes for conservation commissioners, and revisions are required to be submitted and revised. All revisions submitted by Wednesday, the week prior to the meeting at close of business. And for all presenters, please clearly state your name, the address of the project, who you're representing, and if you have preferred pronouns. For all members of the public, please clearly state your name, address, and preferred pronoun. Okay, so hearing 1 opened, Pure Sky Energy for changes to the approved construction sequencing and the existing order of conditions for the solar facility, which is currently under construction, as well as additional proposed grading and buffer zone and land subject to flooding at 191 West Pomeroy Lane, map 19D, lot 10. Okay, and are you pulling in our applicants, Erin?
Yeah, and sorry, when I go to pull people in, order changes of who I'm promoting. So if I accidentally promote you, it would be helpful if you decline, because it just hops around. And
You as
also
in-
if
okay.
people who are here representing the project could raise their hand, because we have
Tom Reed.
almost 55 attendees. So I don't know if anybody else was joining you, Tom. Oh,
I see
Yeah,
2 more hands up.
Lawrence should be here if he can
Okay.
put his hand up.
got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, how are you?
We're good, I think.
Good. We'll talk about it in a couple hours, right?
Exactly. Still fresh.
Yes. Want me to hop? I don't know if you,
I'm
Erin, you
gonna-
want to take it?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
give Erin the floor and then we'll move over to you guys. Thanks.
Yeah, so just to give the commission a very quick update, we are still waiting for Natural Heritage to render their determination on this project. There was some discussion relative to the commission's conversation at the last hearing, specifically around herbicide application. We had an offline conversation, and I did upload the content of the email correspondence to the OneDrive folder so the commission could see it. The long and the short of it is the herbicide applicator who's involved on the project was concerned that if we didn't use glyphosate, that the alternative chemical that would be used on the site actually stays in the soil for a longer period of time and has secondary impacts, whereas glyphosate doesn't stick around in the soil. And so for plantings and stuff like that, they're more successful if glyphosate is used. So really, Misty Ann was looking for us to sort of make sure we were comfortable. And one of the things that she had suggested when I spoke to her was limiting the application of glyphosate rather than limiting glyphosate altogether. So for example, using like a cut stem treatment, like a dabbing treatment on stems rather than a foliar spray, because it really provides much more specificity with how the chemical is used. So that's just one kind of piece of that. And again, we're still waiting for Heritage to confirm, but they would like to have consensus from the commission that use of glyphosate is okay under specific application purposes. The other just note was I did request impacts for comp storage on the site and for impacts to BLSF and comp storage calculations. And also I did note that there were additional structures shown on the equipment pads, which weren't shown on the original approved pad. So we did receive a revision with those removed. Anyways, those are the additional comments. We did get some additional materials submitted in response to my comments, and that's all that's outstanding on my end.
Thanks, Erin. And so because we got those revisions submitted sort of late, we haven't had the full amount of time for all commissioners to review it. So we will be continuing this tonight, but we do have to resolve the herbicide issue. I see your hand up, Alex, and I'm gonna move it over to Tom, and then we'll have commissioner
Yeah, I
discussion.
read the emails from the state, and I don't think it was as clear cut as Aaron put it. There was a prioritized list that was provided. I don't know if that was Naomi or somebody else, but anyways, there was a suggested prioritized list, and glyphosate was last. And she didn't have any problem with that. I'm not quite sure who she was. I think it was Naomi, or there was another person involved. But anyways, she didn't have any problem at all with using the other combinations and having glyphosate being the last resort. And
Okay, well, let's discuss this in due order. So I'm gonna let Tom give the update, and then we'll get back to commissioner discussion.
Sure, thanks. So for the record, Tom Reedy, attorney with Bacon Wilson out of Amherst, here on behalf of Fort River Solar 2 and its application for modification of their order of conditions for 191 West Pomeroy Old Hickory Ridge Golf Course. Yeah, we'll get to, I'm not even going to touch on the invasive. We can get to that kind of in maybe the commission's comments. What I'm going to talk about is the phasing piece. We're obviously still waiting for Misty Ann's sign off generally on invasive. She obviously wants your comment. But then on the grading changes, I don't think that she has a dog in the race for the phasing changes. What we're looking to do for the phasing changes was to allow, and I think it's in the letter that was sent, let's say maybe a month ago, if not a couple of months ago, just to allow the installation of utility poles and posts on the western array, installation of the eastern array and both the equipment pads. And I think, Lawrence, we can talk about it, but that's kind of the big crux of it, is doing the equipment pads, because I think the point of this is to get in and to get out as soon as possible. And then as far as the grading goes, if you could enable me to share my screen, then I can show you the plans that Lawrence had sent over to Erin today, so you can see, and I can show you where. Thank you. Do this. Okay. So hopefully you can see my screen. What I'm going to do, this is the eastern array. I'm going to scroll down to the eastern array with cut and fill on it. The cut appears in red and the fill appears in green. Your 100-foot wetland buffer is here in the, I'll call it a magenta color. Your 50-foot no work is in the yellow, just to give you some context of what we're talking about for cut and fill. And I'll scroll down a little bit so you can see the entirety of the eastern array. And I'm going to zoom in on a few of these just so you'll be able to see exactly what we're talking about for like volume. How much are we cutting? How much are we filling? Because I think that helps tell the story a little bit. So just up here, we're talking about filling, a foot, 1.7 feet, 0.7 feet, 0.2 feet, talking about cutting, 0.3, 0.7, 1.4 feet, filling 0.9 feet, so you're getting the sense. And over here, it's a little bit steeper. This is probably the steepest, or the most dramatic cut that we're going to have. I think it's 4 feet right here because of the mounding. And I know that a lot of this is as a result of the tree work and the removal of the trees on the site. Then you go down to the southerly part of the eastern array. And again, you're talking about, a foot of fill, 1.4 feet of fill, and then cutting down here, 1.6, 2.3, etc. So, not a tremendous amount, more than I think what we had originally talked about, because I don't think there was any sense of we were just going to use the land, but this is what is being required from the racking company and as a result of the impact of the removal of those trees. And so this is the eastern array, and I'll scroll down so you can see the western array. And again, the red is cut and the green is fill. You've got your magenta line here for 100-foot buffer. 50-foot no work is in the yellow. And so then again, you've got areas, small areas of fill, and then some areas of cut. And I'll again zoom in. Let me scroll over a little bit so you can see just the volume. Again, you've got 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.8 of cut, 1.3 of fill, and then a foot and a half, etc. of cut, and then less than a foot of fill in these areas here. So those are the proposed grading changes to the site. And so, we're talking about the invasive, we're talking about the phasing, we're talking about the grading. And then I know Lawrence had provided to Erin the fill inside the 100-foot boundary. And I think we also had provided figures showing that there was still sufficient compensatory storage as a result of, I think it was like 29.5 cubic yards of fill inside that 100-year flood boundary. And then, like Erin mentioned, there was just an error in the equipment pad layout, and so those have been updated accurately to reflect what we originally had.
Thanks,
So
Tom. So the floodplain's not on the map. Is that something we could see for the next iteration?
Yeah, I think so, Lawrence. And I see it called. Okay.
Floodplain is on the map. If you move up to the that second sheet with the eastern array, and then it's the area to the right of the array. If you can zoom in, one of those lines is the
right here. So yeah, you can see. I'll go up to the table so you can see it's like I'll call it the tooth right here, almost like a dental. So you can see if you follow it.
Okay.
Follow my cursor.
Yeah.
Comes down to here. Follows kind of the toe of that slope, cuts in a little bit here where there's some fill, and then bounces back out. So that the area that's affected, it looks like it's in this area right here, and then this area right here minimally. But those, I think, combined are that 29.5 cubic yards of fill in those areas.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out. So again, we're going to be continuing this, and I think our goal for the night is just to resolve and get some consensus on the herbicide so that we can move forward with NHESP approvals. I'm just going to open this for commissioner discussion. Alex, you've already commented So my concern is that the list of alternatives are alternatives, but not necessarily better than glyphosate. And I have not done that research at this point, but is there any evidence to suggest that they have less impacts than glyphosate does? Because glyphosate comes in many different solutions, some of which are better for adjacent to wetlands, and I don't know about the other ones. Alex, is that something that you've done research on and could comment on?
I haven't compared all the herbicides that are listed in the emails from the state, but there's a huge effort to move away from glyphosate. They use it extensively in New Brunswick, and it's having huge impacts up there. Mr. Irving has control of New Brunswick public forests, and he's basically using glyphosate to eliminate deciduous trees, everything deciduous, and it's having a lot of impacts. And that's a huge use. What we're talking about here is not a huge use, but it's still the same substance.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I have not done the homework on the others.
okay.
However, when we did another battery storage project, they had an alternative that they were happy with using to eliminate invasives. And we're happy to not use the glyphosate. And I would like to follow the same pattern here to be consistent.
I understand that. I mean, glyphosate is used for natural area management pretty extensively, and some of the scrutiny involved is because it's so widely used and it is a favored pesticide. But I guess without some evidence to show that the alternatives have less impact than it, I'm not really ready to ban glyphosate outright in favor of an alternative that just is less studied. So that, I mean, I work with a lot of pesticide applicators and they work with glyphosate. And I don't know about the alternatives.
All I can say is women didn't have a vote for a long, long time. That took decades and everybody was happy with it. It took a long time to change. The same thing's happening with pesticides. And in Massachusetts, you can't buy certain pesticides unless you have a license. In New Hampshire, you can buy them. So things don't all change at the same rate. So, I just think about how long certain things take to change. And this whole stuff is changing. So I was happy with the prioritized list that the state provided in their email, not really knowing much about the other herbicides, but they did say they were happy with putting glyphosate last. And she started talking about DAB applications like Aaron did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if it's a minimization and the state, the NHESP is recommending that list, then that's fine from my standpoint. It's past muster. Bruce, go ahead.
Any analysis or tables that we make for doing comparison, I want to see the application technique also compared. Because I do think the daubing technique does help a lot because you're not spraying it.
Yeah. Yeah, because there was discussion in the email of foliar applications and mist versus dabbing the stem, which is very local. So.
Okay, so are you open?
I could go with that.
Okay, so then is that sufficient, Aaron, to move forward with without an outright ban of glyphosate application, but with like a strategic list and application method to minimize impacts? Does that get us where we need to go with NHESP?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see a motion made by the commission to state that they support the prioritized application system and that they would like to see limits on how glyphosate is applied in terms of limiting use to, cut stem treatments rather than foliar spray. I think if we had a motion to that effect, that would give Ms. Deanne the clear guidance she needs to approve the plan that is under discussion.
And can I just clarify that the prioritized list is from Misty Ann, or is that from SWCA?
I don't have the email memorized of who said what. I know there was a back and forth that was somewhat lengthy, and I think it was Misty Ann who recommended the prioritization of use, and one of the chemicals that Misty Ann had recommended over glyphosate, Naomi raised concern about that specific chemical application because of its staying in the soils longer and impacting other vegetation. So it's a little confusing for me because this isn't exactly my area of expertise to try to articulate. But I don't think we should expressly forbid glyphosate if it would be less detrimental to resource area alteration and less impact to wildlife habitat to use glyphosate as an alternative in a controlled manner.
Yeah, so I think we should in this motion prioritize the cut and dab as the really limiting factor. And then I guess the prioritization list, just to be clear that we're limiting the pesticides, not just replacing one pesticide with another with less science behind it, but just limiting it primarily and then having options to limit glyphosate if those alternatives are better.
Yeah, there's like 5 or 6 emails. It was confusing, but the prioritized list is in there.
Thanks, Alex. Rachel?
I just want to clarify, I remember the last hearing, one of the reasons the applicant was requesting a change was that the cut and dab method was labor prohibitive for controlling some of the invasives, and they were trying to get the invasives under control. So I'm just wanting to clarify in the context of the discussion, are we allowing some foliar spray? Or, what methods are we allowing?
That's a great point.
I mean, I think that we're prioritizing the cut and dab when appropriate, and then foliar spraying is still on the table.
Okay.
But unless you want to specify an emotion, somebody. I think the realistic outcome for controlling invasives is to have all those tools available.
Can you bring up the email?
Yes, it's just going to take me a second to track it down. I don't have my hand on it
Lawrence
right
has his
now.
hand up. I have one other issue too.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Lawrence. Go ahead, Lawrence.
Yeah, so the it wasn't that the cut stem wasn't effective. It was that some of the invasives were very much like little seedlings, and pulling those out were not effective. Just to correct, or just clarify that previous comment. But we're not wedded to glyphosate. It's just that was the one that was in the CMP and noted and subject to the previous discussion and inclusion in the order of conditions. That we stick to it. But we're happy to kind of roll with the punches to minimize its use and use it only when it's necessary and in a method that is appropriate.
Thanks, Lawrence. I'm going to go to public comment while Aaron is getting this up and everybody is mulling over motion. If you have any comment, raise your hand. Aaron?
So I just wanted to point out that we did receive one written comment, and I know just from speaking recently with staff, and we're trying to make sure we're doing this right, that because this wasn't posted on our website, that it should be read. So I don't know if you want me to read that at the beginning before people from the public might speak.
Why don't you do that in case it
Okay.
covers some other comments.
Okay, so I'm going to do my best to read this as quickly as possible. The email is from Michael Lipinski. Please distribute this email to all Conservation Commission members before the December 4th 2024 meeting. Good morning. I want to bring attention to previous Fort River Solar Wetlands Protection Act special condition created by the Concom over a year ago. This condition was created to protect the extremely sensitive environmental conditions on the solar facility site and the protected areas that surround it from an unsafe BESS, which is an acronym for battery storage system. I believe that permitting any site work related to a BESS at this time would be a violation of these conditions. He goes on to cite the special condition 2, which he highlights. A formal amendment to this notice of intent / order of conditions is expected for future review of the battery storage proposal and any associated site work only after that proposed battery storage system has been approved by the Amherst Fire Department in writing and said approval is included. The order of conditions DEP number 089-0728 clearly states that no site work related to the battery storage system can take place before the BESS has been approved by the Amherst Fire Department. Once this approval has been obtained, Pure Sky can submit a formal amendment for the system to the associated site work. No formal detailed amendment involving the BESS has been submitted to the Concom. At a recent Conservation Commission meeting, Pure Sky indicated that they wanted to begin and complete construction of 2 equipment pads located on the east and west solar arrays at Hickory Ridge. They have also submitted an amendment to the order of conditions that would change the phasing of construction at Hickory Ridge, stating that they intend to install the equipment pads as soon as possible. The plans for the equipment pads at Hickory Ridge clearly indicate that the pads are designed to anchor assorted electrical gear and a BESS. In fact, the BESS gear uses more space on the equipment pad than all other electrical system components combined. In earlier plans, the equipment pads were carefully designed with the containment system intended to capture any leakage from the battery fire related events. The equipment pads were designed for POW and centipede batteries that may not be permitted. It is clear that the work on the equipment pads would be site work related to the BESS. Maps recently submitted by Pure Sky for the proposed phasing changes at Hickory Ridge show the proposed electrical equipment pads. BESS equipment featuring POW and batteries are clearly shown on both pads. I've attached a small portion of one of these maps that show the batteries on the pad, excuse me. I've also attached a photo taken at another Pure Sky solar facility under construction in Wilbraham, Mass. Earlier this year. The photo is meant to illustrate that these are not simple concrete pads. Extensive, careful located conduit, grounding rods, and grounding cables are all pre-positioned well before the concrete arrives on site. The pad in Wilbraham is somewhat different in that it is not a single large concrete pad, but several smaller pads grouped together. I am assuming that the soggy plastic soil conditions at Hickory Ridge make a more substantial unified pad more necessary. According to the agreed upon special conditions for this project, any associated site work related to the BESS is not allowed until the Amherst Fire Department approves a BESS in writing and Pure Sky submits the approval to the Conservation Commission. Only then can the Conservation Commission act on any formal amendment concerning BESS work at Hickory Ridge. I would expect that the Conservation Commission will follow the special conditions that they created last year. The Amherst Fire Department needs to approve any BESS before the construction of the equipment / BESS pad is allowed, and the Pure Sky should submit a formal BESS amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, I see a public comment. Brooke, Gabe, I'm going to allow you to speak. 2 minutes, please. Erin, I guess I don't have permissions, so do you mind?
Hi, I recently relocated here from Florida, where I was a nature guide in Big Cypress National Preserve. And I know a little bit about wetlands and herbicide use. I suffered a chemical burn to my right eye because of glyphosate in a wetland. And I am telling you, I am listening to you talking, and I have learned a lot since that happened. And I think you all you don't seem to know what you're talking about, and you do not understand. You are dealing with very dangerous chemicals, and the alternatives that they propose to using are usually even more dangerous. And the binders that they use to apply to the plants are more dangerous than glyphosate itself. If you pour glyphosate on grass, it doesn't die. It needs a binder. The binders are the most dangerous part. You need to consult an independent expert before you make this decision, because this meeting is scaring the shit out of me, honestly. I thought Massachusetts would be a safe place to live because you have laws in place about keeping these chemicals at least 100 feet away from a wetland.
Thank you, Brooke. So Brooke by binders was talking about the surfactants, which we've discussed at previous meetings, are part of the solutions that go with glyphosate and change whether or not it's used in aquatic environments or terrestrial environments, just for Concom information. Okay, I'm seeing no more hands raised, so I'm going to commissioners. I see one more hand raised. Aaron, do I have, yes. Lenore, please go ahead. 2 minutes, please. I think you're on mute, Lenore.
Sorry, thought I was unmuted. Hi, thanks, everybody.
I need the address.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, could you just please state your address for the record?
I'm sorry. Lenore Brick, 255 Strong Street. So I wasn't going to comment on this because I'm always looking at the big picture of these projects, but since you're talking about glyphosate, I do know a couple of scientific researchers that I can send your way. I don't know who's still around in the Valley, but regardless, in case you don't know, I mean, glyphosate is a very toxic biocide. It's carcinogenic. It does bind strongly to the soil. It does contaminate groundwater. So it is something to really know more about before you consider. You have to consider the soil type and the slope and the groundwater depth. It's a whole big thing. And if we're really trying to control invasives, the best way to control invasives is to protect the ecosystem in general, because the minute you start messing with it and removing things and making and taking land that's already compromised and compromising it even more, you're just inviting invasives. And just one last thing, to not be fooled by the legislation we have in the state, because the last 4 legislative sessions, there have been proposals and bills about glyphosate, about pesticide use, about herbicide use. It doesn't seem to pass. It's very complicated why that is, but there's been a lot of research about the dangers of that. So there have been bills, they just haven't passed. If anybody knows, working with the state is very difficult to pass any bill into law. So don't let it fool you that just because something's legal, it's safe.
Thank you,
That's all.
Lenore. And just for everybody's information, whoever is applying pesticides is doing so with an applicator license, and they do so under various specific guidelines, and they need to go through training to do it. I don't think any of us want to be using glyphosate, but that is how we restore lands from invasives. Alex.
Yeah. We've got a whole lot of people who seem to have disappeared, but I wanted to comment about the pad. So I hope Tom and Lawrence can hear me. Anyways, when we approved the conditions a while ago, I worked pretty hard to remove batteries from any consideration, and we got a letter from Pure Sky saying that they had removed the battery storage system from the project plans. And Aaron tells me that the pad that would allow batteries remained in the document that we approved. And I think that was an error, because it was agreed in writing by Pure Sky that we had modified the project so that it was a solar project producing electricity that could be put into the grid, but not battery storage system. So, and I worked pretty hard for that special condition that the public commenter referenced, that there wouldn't be any work on the site related to battery storage. So I think with regard to the pad, if the pad goes forward, is to take care of the electrical work that is necessary to make the solar project operable. But the pad should be reduced in size and only the size necessary for that equipment go forward, and not extend the pad for battery storage. And it occurred to me that all those the infrastructure is put in place prior to for batteries. The infrastructure is put in place before the concrete is poured. And I would suspect that the placement of that infrastructure is battery specific, but we don't have batteries approved yet. So I would move that Pure Sky go forward with installing the pad minus the surface to store batteries.
Is that a motion, Alex?
I know I said it that way, didn't I?
Yeah.
That's
is
where that is where I'm headed, because way back when we took batteries out of this project, it was a solar project that was going to produce electricity, put it into the grid, but it was a battery-free project. And so the pad should not be built to store batteries until we have a battery that's approved. And they come forward with their application for batteries, and then their extension of the pad would be included in that formal amendment.
Thank you, Alex. Any other commissioner comments?
Is my
Yeah,
hand
Rachel.
down now?
Yes, I don't see your hand. It's down.
I
Go ahead, Rachel.
just had two questions. Appreciate the cut fill calculations. You know, where is the 573 net cut going? I just want to clarify, is that going off site? Is that getting redistributed? And then the second question is, you know, it's a little bit out of, I wasn't there for the original application, but the filling that's happening in the floodplain, is there an correlating compensatory storage cut happening on site? Just want to clarify that.
Tom or Lawrence, is there anyone that can answer that tonight?
Yeah, the 29.5 is kind of a worst case scenario in terms of the cut fill. So the compensatory storage will be adjusted with what the total encroachment is. If it's 29.5, which is the worst case, then it will be done for that. If not, if it's lower, then it will be lower.
And then where's the cut going that you?
We would look to get that either taken off site, because we wouldn't want to spread it around at this stage. Either that, or we'll stockpile it and spread it around in the spring. But we can kind of go with the Concom on that one.
That's about 3 inches over 1.3 acres. That's the amount of cut.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cut.
Alex?
Is your screen frozen?
Mine
No.
is not frozen, no.
My screen is frozen. I'm not quite sure how to unfreeze it. I may have to depart and then come back.
Alex, if you try turning off your camera and then turning it back on, and or just try to go without your camera for a short time, it might help.
Okay.
And close all of your other web applications in case it's a connectivity issue.
Okay, thank you. Is my hand down now?
Your hand is down. Jason's is up. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, sorry, Lawrence, did you say that with the cut, they'll be cut and then you're just gonna spread it around the site in the springtime?
If that would be preferable to us taking it from site, but as far as the Concom's concerned.
So so you're cutting it and then you're using it as fill? Like you're not
It's a net
balancing.
cut. It's a net cut site, Jason. And so we had originally anticipated to export it offsite. But I think what Lawrence is saying is, but if the commission says, we don't want you to do that, keep it on site, then we'll keep it on site. But the plan was to export it from the site.
And how many cubic feet total are we talking here?
573 net.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I bring this up because when it's left on site, it can really change the flow of water and hydrology and have unexpected results. And I just want us to know what we're approving.
And again, we're not approving it tonight, but you're hearing questions from the commissioners that will hopefully be addressed at our continuance.
My preference would be to have it removed.
Okay. And I think it's 465 because we've got from the plans I think you originally saw in the ones today, I think it's like 465 cubic yards. Not that it's a tremendous difference. Point still remains export from site. And so maybe, you know, Madam Chair, at some point, just understanding we are going to get continued. It seems like we do need something on invasive. I don't know if Erin still wants a motion. And then it seems like it's on us to go to Ms. Deanne to get her to sign off on these revised plans to come back to you at your hopefully next meeting to get your approval after we get NHESP approval. And I just want to make sure we're understanding our tasks the right way.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to that motion, commissioners. We're gonna have to do that. So I'll be looking for a motion. And you've heard commissioner comments tonight. So Ms. Deanne's gonna have to see revised plans, hopefully taking into account what's been discussed. And Alex, are you still with us? Okay, I'm not seeing Alex, and he certainly has had some input, but does anybody want to make a motion regarding the pesticide applications on site? And Erin, exactly what was the key piece of information that Ms. Deanne needed, whether or not we were going to allow glyphosate, or do we really have to be specific about this prioritization list and the methodologies for use? I mean, isn't that going to be part of like the O&M, or like I thought that she just needed to know that we were willing to allow some extent of glyphosate use.
Sorry, I'm reading emails and switching around screens. So yeah, there's an email from after our last meeting, I notified Ms. Deanne and Naomi about the concerns that were raised about glyphosate at the meeting. After that point, Ms. Deanne responded and basically asked for additional information. Naomi responded and was talking about alternatives and expressed some concern about the alternative to glyphosate. Then there was some discussion about time of year restrictions for use of herbicides.
That was when turtles were active.
Yes, yeah, and you know, part of this plan may be implemented when turtles are active. So just to keep that in mind, that this is an ongoing treatment. And I'm doing my best to sort of I guess sum this up, but I did have a conversation with Ms. Deanne about it following the email chain, because I wanted to get some clarification about where NHESP was coming from. And Ms. Deanne was, I think, just wanting to make sure that the commission was okay with sort of the protocol that had been discussed, and we can certainly, you know, attach the email protocol that has been discussed as part of the record of the approval. It's mostly to say that from her perspective, she was completely comfortable with us limiting the use of glyphosate and also limiting the application type for the glyphosate. And, you know, if it was more advantageous to use glyphosate over this other alternative that was more harmful, then, you know, that would be their preference to allow that. So that's my understanding. But there is an approved, you know, there's an approved CMP where herbicide application is part of the overall restoration project and removal of invasives on the site. And Miss Deanne did remind me that we really, in the state of Massachusetts, it's actually a different state agency that regulates use of herbicides. So she said she wouldn't prohibit use of herbicides or specific herbicides, but more prohibit how they're applied or be restrictive about how they're applied.
Is
That was-
NHESP offering a protocol for this, or I mean, I guess I'm unclear about what she needs from us, because I don't think we're in a position to like determine the best application for turtles and time periods, especially right now, given that we are kind of unclear on
Well,
what
they would,
information is needed.
Natural Heritage would spell out the protocols relative to the rare and endangered species on the site. Natural Heritage is the one that says during these months, you know, these are the restrictions for the herbicide application. So that would be in the NHESP determination letter when that's issued. I wish
we
that
just defer
Naomi
to
had
that?
come to the meeting
Okay.
because that would have helped this a lot, I think. But
Well, can we just defer to NHESP recommendations? Like, I mean, they have expertise in this and they're most conservative when it comes to you know, wetland setbacks and sensitive species use relative to the sites where there's proposed spraying.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, that makes most sense to me because I don't think we're working with enough information as a commission to determine what's going to happen, but I am looking for a motion to at least move this forward. And am I right that we need to do that right now and not put this on with the continuance for this hearing?
No, because they can't, it's like they can't issue their determination letter until we say we're in agreement with the protocols.
Okay. Alex.
I may have missed some. I had to log off and log back in order to fix things. So while I was gone, did Erin actually bring up and share the prioritized list that we were talking about?
We did not look at the prioritized list. She gave us sort of a recounting of the email string.
Yeah, so she could perhaps bring that up so people can see what we're talking about. Which is in the folder, by the way.
Yeah. And there's multiple emails, so forgive me because I'm bumping around between like 3 screens to try to find.
I think it's fairly close to the top.
Yeah, there was a list and I feel like I'm skipping over it. Yeah, I don't think I grabbed the right email. Sorry.
Well, what you have in the folder, was that a complete list of emails?
Yes.
I mean, Alex, what I was suggesting is that we defer to NHESP recommendations for method and type of application as well as timing and let them establish the protocol.
No, I understand that, but there was, and I don't know who proposed the priority list, whether that was the consultant or whether that was the state.
Yeah, I mean,
But it sounded like it was a starting place.
there's so many emails in here. I'm flipping through them trying to locate it, and it's
You know, what do we need to know? Where if we look, Alex, if we see a list, none of us is going to be able to say that looks good because I know that chemical is better than that one. Like, I mean,
No,
if we we know it's from SWCA, then I would say I'd prefer to defer to NHESP. If we know it's from NHESP, I'd say that's fine. So that's what I'm already suggesting is we defer to NHESP recommendations rather than SWCA. If SWCA is just coming up with a list because we said no glyphosate, that doesn't really bring us to a balance of that's better than what we had before.
I understand.
I think we have,
Go ahead, Andre.
I've found an email that might be the one we're looking for.
Okay.
It's
Because if-
email NV 111-92024. 92024.
And it's from who?
Naomi Valentine
Okay, so
What-
that's SWCA.
to Miss Deanne, Merold and Aaron.
Okay, so that's a
Yes.
consultant.
Thank you, Andre.
Michelle, I have a question on Natural Heritage. Do they have expertise in herbicides, or are they simply going to say what season they can't be applied?
I would think, and I don't know, that they have a more comprehensive approach. I mean, their business is the protection of endangered species and their habitats, and setting regulations around that.
The answer is
And-
yes. Just
Okay, the answer is yes, and at least they're far more qualified to do it than we are, especially at this point in time.
Yep.
so this is
Okay.
the content of the email.
I can't really read that, Aaron. Do you mind just, okay.
I can't get the whole content on the screen. If I
That's not the
scroll-
prioritized list. She's just saying she doesn't. Yeah, this is a dialogue.
Would the list have come in as an attachment or just?
No, it was part of the email string. And if the prioritized list came from the consultant, then I agree with Michelle.
Can you scroll up one more? I think I
was-
saw something from Marianne saying that
last paragraph of that email that you've just gone past there.
yeah, so the plan could have a prioritization of manual, imazapyr, triclopyr, direct methods, etc., fog mist, glyphosate direct, and would leave it as an option, but provide two alternative active ingredients to prioritize first.
That was Misty Ann's recommendation, and then
Okay.
Naomi responded that she was concerned with one of the suggestions because it persists and travels in the soil more than the
Okay.
other.
So frankly, I don't think we have enough information to make really a determination on this, and I would just prefer to defer to NHESP, but commissioners, this was raised the last meeting and I wasn't there, so however you feel you need to resolve this, we need to move on with this hearing. Go ahead, Jason.
I would like to move that we leave the decision to NHESP and the consultant, or at least not leave the decision, but defer to them. They're experts. That, you know, I'm not an expert. I don't think many of us are experts. So I would move that we defer, or we look to NHESP and the consultant for guidance on this.
I would
Okay.
that.
We have a motion and a second. Aaron, I'm just gonna confirm with you that this is gonna be sufficient information to get this moved forward with NHESP.
So just if I could ask a clarifying question about the motion, is this motion stating that what the NHESP and the applicant's representative come up with you're okay with them moving forward with finalizing that in terms of the herbicide application on the site so that they can move forward with issuing their determination letter. They're not going to be coming back to us with a plan again to review, but they're actually going to finalize the plan and move forward at that point.
Yeah, I would like to defer to them as the experts. And
Okay.
you know, I think I think
Okay.
we stated that we would like to potentially prioritize the DAB approach as opposed to broadcasting.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I guess I could amend my motion to add that we defer to NHESP and the consultant for the use of, to make the determination for the use of herbicides, and that the Conservation Commission would like to see the DAB approach prioritized over any broadcast spraying.
All right,
I'll
thank you,
sti-
Jason.
Still
We have,
second that.
okay, so we have amended motion. Andre seconds the amended motion. Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, worked out eventually in the end. Okay, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank
We'll
you.
see.
Continue to next
Yeah,
hearing.
thank you. We forgot about that
I
one.
gotta
Please.
wait a minute. I want to come back to the pad.
Well, we're gonna continue that.
Coming back.
We're
I want
coming
to come
back.
back. I want to come back to the pad. And because I want to ask them to change their drawings to not consider batteries. That would be in keeping with their order. And there was a correspondence that was attached to the order that basically took batteries out of the project. And we now have a pad, which originally, when it was filed, had batteries on it, and it shouldn't. And that pad should only be big enough to hold the equipment necessary for the solar project now that has been authorized to operate, and nothing more. And that pad should not be expanded for battery storage until they file an amendment to the notice and we have the fire department agreeing in writing to certain batteries. That would be in keeping with the order that we approved. What's proposed is not in keeping with the order we approved. So I would like to make a motion that their drawings be changed such that the pad is only big enough to hold the electrical equipment necessary to make the solar project as approved operate, and nothing more.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. So I have a second on the motion. I'm not hearing a second. You've heard commissioner comments, Tom and Lawrence, so please consider that for our continuation.
Thank you.
Okay, and now I'm looking for a motion to continue this public hearing to December 18th, 2024 at 7:35 p.m.
So moved.
Jason on a motion,
Second.
Rachel on a second. Rachel,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Andre.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.
We will see you later. Okay, hearing two. This public hearing is now called to order. The hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands as most recently amended in Article 3.31, Wetlands Protection under Town of Amherst General Bylaws. This is a notice of intent, bylaw only for Tetra Tech on behalf of ASD Shutesbury Mass Solar LLC for their construction of a 9.3 megawatt DC ground-mounted solar voltaic facility and battery storage system and pertinent components of 3 parcels totaling 100 and 2.48 acres with 39.6 acres of anticipated disturbed area. This project proposal includes tree clearing, installation of associated access roads, stormwater infrastructure, and fencing at 0 Shutesbury Road, map 9B, lot 11 and 12, and map 9D, lot 27. Proposed work will alter bank and buffer zone to locally regulated resource areas. Okay, we're gonna start this with Erin. Can you please give us?
Madam Chair, I have to step
Yes.
away take a personal moment for a very brief period. I'll be right back.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Erin, can you please, all right, do we have people to bring in? Please raise your hand if you're in the audience. I see Corey, I see Matt. I'll bring in Matt. I see Steve.
Do you want me to start first, Michelle?
Sure, let's make sure we've got everybody.
Okay.
Hi, Matt, Corey, and do we have Steve? Tom sticking with us? Okay.
You ready for me to jump in, Michelle?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I think I've discussed with the applicant's representative that I think that the logical first step or first phase in review of this project is for the commission to discuss the 100-foot 100-foot no work zone or 100-foot no work area that's associated with isolated vegetated wetlands and vernal pools under our local wetland bylaw regulations. There is a portion of this project which has an access road which goes through, it's proposed to go through a 100-foot no work zone. And so really, I think the first discussion that the commission needs to have is whether they are willing to reduce that buffer in order to permit the access road. I think before we start sort of a larger scale review of the project and discussion of the project, that is a critical discussion that the commission needs to have because it's sort of at the crux of the project.
Thank you, Erin. I'm gonna hand it to you guys. If you can pick someone to speak, we'll give you 5 minutes. Then I'm gonna go to public comment and then we'll go to commissioners. Matt, go ahead. It looks like you're queued up.
Second, I'm sharing my screen here.
Yep.
All right, can everyone see it now?
Yep.
All right, for the record, Matt Moyne with Tetra Tech here on behalf of AST Shutesbury Mass Solar, the applicant for the project. Here with me tonight, I've got Corey McCandless from the applicant, Tom Reedy from Bacon Wilson, and Steve Roberti with Goddard Consulting. As Erin just mentioned, tonight's presentation is primarily going to be focused on proposed activities within areas subject to jurisdiction. The plan you see here on the screen, most folks are likely familiar with at this point, but to help orient everyone, top left hand portion of the screen of the plan is Shutesbury Road. The right-hand side is the town line between Amherst and Pelham, and north is facing up. The resource areas you see on this plan are based on the ORAD, Mass DEP wetland data layers, and field observations by our team. For those of you who are not familiar with the project, it's located at 0 Shutesbury Road. It's a 3-lot assemblage of roughly 103 acres, and the project site is approximately 40 acres. The major components are the ground-mounted tracker systems, the electrical equipment and BESS, perimeter security fencing, gravel access drive, and stormwater management areas. Avoid, minimize, and mitigate efforts, pretty substantial efforts have been incorporated into the design. And the project conforms with local bank and buffer zone performance standards, complies with Massachusetts stormwater management standards, and is consistent with DEP wetlands policy. In terms of project activities, as I mentioned, there was a thoughtful effort to avoid wetland resource areas on site. So the project avoids state bank, BVW, IVW, vernal pools, bordering and isolated land subject to flooding, riverfront area, and state regulated buffer zones. The focus on that is to try to be consistent with both the state regulations and the local bylaw, where avoidance should be the first measure for our project. Where we couldn't avoid impacts to resource areas, we minimized those impacts and mitigated them. The impacts are related to local bank and the town of Amherst buffer zone. We're here in front of the commission primarily to request a couple of areas of work. The first one is temporary alteration to local bank, about 10 linear feet, for the replacement of an existing 15-inch corrugated metal pipe culvert near Shutesbury Road. So what you see on your screen here, snippet from the overall plan. Shutesbury Road, this is the bend in the road, where the proposed gravel drive shown in gray here generally coincides with the existing logging road. The red line is the 50-foot buffer, the green is the 75, and the gold is the 100. We have a photo here of that delineated bank, and you can see kind of on the bottom left portion of the photo, that's the end of the corrugated metal pipe as it exists today. So we're proposing to replace that corrugated metal pipe with a reinforced concrete pipe and a head wall, and ultimately maintain the remainder of the bank. So overall, it conforms with the performance standards. The other element of the project that we're seeking approval for is alteration to the town of Amherst buffer zone. There are two areas, the one we were just referring to by Shutesbury Road, and the second area, as Aaron referred to earlier, is this internal site area where we need to cross through the buffer zone to gain access to the eastern portion of the site. Overall, the project avoids more than 17.7 acres of buffer zone. All impacts conform with the performance standards as written in the local regulation. For the Shutesbury Road area, we've minimized those alterations to only those required to provide safe and secure access to the project site and to meet the stormwater management standards. The road itself coincides with the existing logging road, which is slightly narrower than the 15-foot wide proposed road. So there'll be some additional impacts to that footprint and the curb cut to allow vehicles to enter and exit the site. As we move to the internal site area, we've avoided vernal pools here to the left associated with isolated wetland I and the areas within 100 feet of them. Where we aren't able to avoid is the crossing to gain access to the eastern half of the site. We've minimized those alterations primarily to those required to gain access. We've located the vegetated maintenance access path at the narrowest crossing line of the buffer zone. So you can see here in the red, that 50-foot buffer, that's the pinch point where these two kind of pointy areas of the buffer zone are closest. We've intentionally located that path to minimize our impacts as best as possible. The other impacts within the buffer zone are selective clearing, limited to that required for installation of the improvements, the fence, the vegetated path, underground electric, and to alleviate critical shading impacts. So this dark cross hatching represents selective tree removal from basically there's a handful of trees that are really casting some substantial shadows on the arrays. The understory
Matt,
growth
you're at 5 minutes. If you could just
Yep,
keep that in mind.
I'm like
Thanks.
10 seconds away from being
Okay,
done.
got it.
Yeah, the understory growth will remain in this area. And to mitigate for those impacts, we're proposing some amphibian enhancement areas around the isolated vegetated wetland. That's it.
All right, thanks, Matt. We're gonna go to public comment. Aaron, is there a written comment that you need to read? Why don't you start us off with that? And if there's any public with comments, please raise your hand. I'll get to you and keep it to 2 minutes, please. Go ahead, Aaron.
Matt, could you just stop sharing your screen briefly so that we can see one another? Thank you so much. Sorry, I don't
Got
know
it.
why that drives me nuts. Okay, so the Conservation Commission once again received a public comment on this project. I'm going to try to read it as quickly as I can. Date November 26, 2024 to the Amherst Conservation Commission, RE public comment regarding Shutesbury Road Solar Project, notice of intent and request for determination of applicability. Please consider this public comment from residents of Amherst. We have followed the careful work of the Conservation Commission in protecting the wetlands and waterways in the town of Amherst and the associated interests of the Wetlands Protection Act and the town of Amherst wetland bylaw and regulations. Recognizing the Commission's expertise, we respectfully offer our response to the notice of intent and request for determination of applicability posted on the Shutesbury Road Solar Project. We request that the commissioners consider taking the following actions in response to the submitted NOI and RDA. Number 1, deny the notice of intent as submitted by Tetra Tech. Number 2, make a positive finding with respect to the request for determination of applicability RDA as to whether the boundaries of resource areas depicted on the plans and or maps referenced above are accurately delineated. And 3, require an NOI because current environmental conditions, late fall and drought, do not allow for an accurate determination of the boundaries of the resource areas. NOI submission concerns. The NOI submitted by Tetra Tech 5th of November 2024 on behalf of Pure Sky was submitted exclusively under the Amherst Wetland Protection Bylaw. This submission disregarded the request of the Conservation Commission at the conclusion of the RDA hearing on May 8th, 2024 to submit an NOI under both the Amherst Wetland Protection Bylaw and the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and its regulations, 310 CMR 10.00. etc. Consequently, approval of the currently proposed NOI could create dangerous precedent such that future applicants would disregard the Conservation Commission's guidance and its attempts to uphold the regulations that protect resource areas in Amherst. This outcome does not appear to align with the Commission's deliberate efforts to avoid setting problematic precedents. The Conservation Commission emphasized to the applicant last May that numerous additional jurisdictional resource areas protected both under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Amherst Wetland Protection Bylaw had not been submitted, reviewed, or approved under the ORAD. Those areas are listed in the finding of fact attachment to the ORAD 5/20/2025 at Shutesbury Road, see Appendix 1, which is an attachment to this correspondence. RDA submission concerns. Regarding the advice of the Conservation Commission to submit an NOI under both local and state regulations, Tetra Tech on November 19th, 2024 instead submitted a request for determination of applicability RDA to determine A, whether the area depicted on the plans and or maps referenced above is an area subject to jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. There may be additional state jurisdictional resource areas in the project area and insufficient information has been submitted to make a determination. As a result, approval of the currently proposed NOI has the potential to result in a project that would violate state laws pertaining to wetland protection. B, whether the boundaries of the resource areas depicted on the plan and or maps referenced above are accurately delineated. The ORAD issued on 5/4/2024 cannot confirm the request for boundaries. An accurate delineation is essential to the town's ability to assess the project's environmental impacts and impose appropriate mitigation measures. The Conservation Commission's urged the applicant to undertake the delineation this past spring, including features such as land subject to flooding, which neighbors have directly observed, prior to the owner's no trespassing order. Current conditions, given that it's late fall and a state declared drought, make it impossible to review resource areas at this time. Therefore, we ask the Commission to delay the determination until spring, when environmental conditions are appropriate for making that determination. Although beyond the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, we note the following additional concerns regarding the proposed solar project on Shutesbury Road as detailed in Pure Sky's application to the Amherst Zoning Board of Appeals. 1, removal of 41 acres of contiguous forest for 10 acres of solar panels. 2, clear cutting over 6,000 trees. 3, damage to critical natural landscape and core habitat as designated by Biomap. 4, sited in a residential zone, RO, and environmental justice area. And 5, installation of lithium batteries, a known fire hazard adjacent to forest, and a densely settled residential neighborhood with no town water. Thank you in advance to the Commission for considering our submission. We greatly appreciate your diligence in protecting the Amherst resource areas. Signed by the following Amherst residents, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name: Bina Addis, Ira Addis, Jennifer Allen, Eric Bachrock, Thomas Baker, Egbert Baker, Chris Benfree, Robert Bazooka, Kathleen Bridgewater, Ira Brick, Lenore Brick, Tara Flippo, Barbara Ford, Arlie Gould, Amy Hirsch, Jack Hirsch, Mary Hawken, Brittany Hudson, Carl Hudson, Jenny Kalick, Mike Lipinski, Renee Moss, Melissa Mueller, Arthur Palladino, Rick Rathbun, Bill Rich. That's it.
Karen. Okay, going to live public comment. I see a hand up. Judy, I'm gonna bring you in 2 minutes, please. You're muted, so please unmute yourself to talk.
Yes, I'm Judy Eisman. I chair the Town of Pelham Planning Board. Previously chaired the Conservation Commission in Pelham for a number of years and was president of the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions. So I have some background in wetlands protection. I generally agree with most of the comments made by the Amherst Group that you just read. And while this project may have technically avoided, I feel it remains a shockingly insensitive proposal toward the environment and fails completely to actually protect wetland resources and habitat continuity, and particularly for larger animals among the three communities. The mitigation proposed is utterly insufficient. And frankly, it is simply a bad location for this project from the perspective of all the three communities that are involved. Excuse me. And relative and to all three communities involved, as well as the critical habitat and biomap issues that have been mentioned. I believe I sent several letters from the Planning Board to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I believe you were copied on some of those previously. I won't go on at this point. I think you should have it well in hand at this point and understand that there are some major environmental issues here, and this is flaunting the entire purpose of protecting wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Scott Cashin.
Thank you, Scott Cashin, wildlife biologist at 21 Hopbrook Road. And I want to just briefly speak about the town's bylaw, which discusses the importance of habitat connectivity for amphibians among wetlands and the importance of upland habitat to the ecological integrity of vernal pools and isolated wetlands. The bylaw further states that buffers larger than 100 feet may be needed, quote, where wildlife habitat in such areas is critical to success of the underlying resource area, or where alteration in such area is likely to result in alteration of the isolated vegetated wetland or vernal pool. Therefore, compliance with the bylaw requires analysis of connectivity and the importance of upland habitats. As I'm sure you know, different amphibians exhibit different life history traits. There was a discussion at a ZBA meeting several months ago about doing amphibian surveys at the site, but I don't believe that those surveys were ever conducted. And until those surveys have been conducted, the Conservation Commission does not have the data needed to analyze compliance with the bylaw. With respect to whether the project is likely to result in alteration to the wetlands, as the applicant mentioned, there would be tree removal and road construction 50 feet from some of the wetlands. And if you look at the maps, a lot of the wetlands would be completely surrounded by industrial development. There's no ambiguity in the scientific literature that land conversions surrounding wetlands will negatively alter their ecological values. The applicant mentioned amphibian enhancements as mitigation. I don't know what those enhancements would be, but I can't envision any habitat enhancements that would mitigate the project's landscape level impacts to amphibian habitat. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Renee Moss, 2 minutes, please.
Hi, Renee Moss, 277 Shutesbury Road. I just have one one quick thing to say, that there were many more names for that letter, but we had to submit it a week in advance, and therefore many names got left out. And I will be sending an addendum to you with the additional names of people who wanted to sign the letter. So, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Renee. That was the last hand I see up. I'm going to go to commissioner questions and comment. Oh, I see one more. Eric Bachrock. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the real diligence with which you're approaching this project. My name is Eric Bachrock. I live at 277 Shutesbury Road, and I was also a signatory of the letter that Aaron read earlier regarding this project. One concern that was not mentioned is that a project of this size likely will increase the ambient temperature of the area, and not only the area of the solar array, but of the surrounding area around the solar project. And I'm concerned that the wetlands that are being skirted and avoided and trying to minimize impact, how can we be assured that the ambient air temperature around the project is not going to be increased substantially? There's a lot of research currently going on. One paper I read earlier today indicated that up to 7.2 degrees Fahrenheit is a potential warming of the wildlands near large solar arrays. So I'm wondering if even if the wetlands are skirted, how can the dramatic increase in the ambient temperature of the area not deeply affect the wetlands and the biodiversity of the area around the project? Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Jacob.
Hi. There's one thing I would like you to consider.
Address.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we're getting a lot of feedback. So if you potentially have two audio sources.
Last name and address.
We just got rid of that. Oh, please.
Sorry, Jacob, can we have your address as well?
Sorry.
Last name.
Jacob Hirsch, 400 Flat Hills Road. One thing I'd like you to consider is that in building the road through the buffer zone between the wetlands is a single intrusion on the wetlands, but every time a truck or construction vehicle moves through there is another intrusion. And during the construction phase of this, there'll probably be thousands of them. And one thing I wonder if you could ask is for the engineer for Pure Sky to calculate the volume of the removal material and how many truckloads it will take to remove that material. That's information that will be important for the town of Amherst when they assess damage to the roads as well as damage to the resource areas. So I hope that's something you'll consider. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jake. Sharon, go ahead, please.
Hi, this is Sharon Weisenbaum. I'm at 86 Henry Street in Amherst. I just want to thank the Conservation Commission for all your work and encourage you to stick with the Wetlands Protection Bylaw as the town of Amherst determined it. I know many people that are hoping that you are able to stand firm with that. You know, it sounds like, you know, well, we just need a few little variances to be able to make, you know, to have access to the eastern part of the site. And but it's not little. The variances are actually quite dramatic. And even if they were small, a little bit here, a little bit there has an overall huge impact, especially when you take into account that this is just one site of 6 sites that are basically all one project that include the 5 sites in Shutesbury. So a little bit here, a little bit there ends up radically, dramatically affecting the ecosystems of this contiguous forest. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, seeing no more hands up, I'm gonna go to commissioner discussion. I'd like to really focus this on the primary procedural part, which we should consider. I just want to mention that 3 of us went out on a site visit for this hearing. We were accompanied by Aaron and Dave, and we spent about 2 hours, if not more, out there. It was fairly comprehensive. Thank you, Matt, for guiding us on the ground. So I know we have a lot of questions about the project, but yes, I do want to, as Aaron said, focus maybe the bulk of our discussion right now on the determination of granting the 100-foot waiver. So with that in mind, commissioners, questions and comments. Alex, go ahead, please.
Aaron's comments were in the folder, and I'm not sure that other commissioners were able to read all of them. But she did write about the crossing of the 100-foot buffer. And I wonder if it might be useful for Aaron to reiterate to the commissioners that were not on site and the rest of us what she had to say.
Yeah, Aaron's that was a very extensive staff comment bundle with exhibits. Is that what you're referring to, I think?
Yeah.
Or actually, Aaron, that was for the RDA. So I'm gonna just go to the other commissioners first, and then if there are still questions that Aaron can answer, maybe we'll do that. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, the exhibit that was showing the road going through the 100-foot buffer, I can't find it necessarily in our packets. I was not able to find it in our packets. I don't know if that plan is included in any of the submittals that were in our packets, but as it goes right between 2 wetlands, isolated wetlands, I tend to agree that access road is going to see a lot of traffic. There's going to be a ton of material going in and going out. All of those wetlands there are at the bottom of some very steep hills with trees being removed and an access road going in, or potentially an existing access road being enlarged. I'm very, very concerned about the impacts to those wetlands. There is going to be a ton of sediment going down, flowing downhill into those wetlands, as well as just a lot of dust and dirt from vehicular traffic on that road, and that stuff can really add up quickly and fill in wetlands like this. So I am, at this point in time, without seeing any kind of real plan, I'm very concerned that there's going to be a very large impact to those wetlands there from this road.
Thanks, Jason. And just for further clarification, Aaron, is it I or X that is the vernal pool, or am I? Is it one of those?
I
Okay.
I
So,
believe the vernal pool.
we do have pictures of spotted salamander egg masses, and there's wood frog chorus observations from that. So those are 2 facultative species, obligate species, indicating that that is a wetland. It's not certified. It hasn't gone through that process yet. So that's the I series on the far left of what we're looking at.
Could I also
Um,
just say something really quickly, Michelle?
Sure.
Relative to Jason's comment, that the plans are in the packet that was provided to you, Jason. The packet is 650 pages long, so that might be why you didn't get to the plans, because it's a
Yeah.
very big packet.
That's
It's at
essentially
the
why.
end. Andre, go ahead.
I don't have an actual comment, or I mean a question, but I will say upfront that I haven't seen anything or enough that to convince me to waive the 100-foot buffer. I'm just putting that out.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Any other commissioner comments? Okay, because a lot of this hinges on that waiver, I'm going to take a poll. So please raise your hand if you are in favor of the waiver of the 100-foot no work area associated with isolated vegetated wetlands and vernal pools. So in favor of the waiver, please raise your hand. Okay. If we're not in favor of granting that waiver, we are moving to either continue, deny, or we can request from the applicant that they withdraw. If we choose to continue, I'm suggesting that we set a date certain for resubmission of the plans to keep due process and the public informed. We can discuss what that timeline would look like. I think staff have suggested something like 60 days. And if it's not submitted by that time, we could propose to deny based on failure to comply with performance standards. And then the third would be request withdrawal. Andre, go ahead.
I'm a little confused. I thought we had 21 days to make a determination.
So we're getting
Our
confused. This
RDA.
is the NOI, the RDA is up next, so they're two separate hearings.
Okay. Thank you.
Matt, do you have something quickly to add to the conversation that?
Yes, so I'll be brief, but as it relates to access to the eastern half of the project site, the proposed crossing at the narrowest buffer zone point is the only feasible access to the eastern half of the site without crossing through a resource area or a buffer zone. So I'd like the commission to keep that in mind as they consider whether or not to provide some relief for work within the buffer zone.
Alex?
I move that we deny the waiver of the 100-foot buffer.
Motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have Alex on the motion, Andre on the second. Alex?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, so that I guess is that for NOI. Aaron, is there any kind of follow-up or background, or are we moving right on to the RDA from here? You're muted, Aaron.
Alex's motion was to deny the waiver. So at this point, I think we have an open hearing. We have to decide, to your point earlier, Michelle, what the next step is. A continuation for a period of time to allow, and I'm sure the applicant's going to want to weigh in on that. And or the other options that you listed. So we have to decide what to do with the open hearing. And I'm sure the applicant's going to want to comment on that.
Yeah, I see Tom's hand up. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's exactly the point. I'd suggest a continuation. If you deny, our hands are a bit tied to have to make a decision if we appeal or not. I mean, I frankly would prefer not to even go down that route. Withdrawing and then resubmitting gets us to the same place as a continuation, but maybe with a little bit more baggage associated with it. So I'd say if it's a 60-day, and I'll turn to Matt and to Corey, but really to Matt about timing to turn around a revised plan, eliminating that internal access way, just to see if 60 days would be enough. But that'd be our suggestion.
Noted. Corey, do you have a comment on the time frame?
Yeah, well, not necessarily on the time frame, but thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And I will just note that we have been very mindful about avoiding all resource areas, including the buffer zones, to the extent that we possibly could. We can go around them. We would honestly would really prefer not to. But if there's any way that we can get this to move forward, we would implore the board to consider that.
Thanks, Corey. I mean, we are upholding our bylaw, and you just for the gravity of it would be setting a precedent where we waiver our bylaw for that 100 foot. So I think that is what the commissioners have considered tonight. Commissioners, Tom, we're looking for our next step, which would be either a motion to continue, and I guess we haven't gotten any more feedback on that 60 to 90. Matt, looks like you have a comment maybe on that one.
Yeah, I
hold
can.
on 1 second. I just want to finish that we're either going to continue or deny or request and withdraw. Tom's already weighed in on what the preference for them would be. So Matt, do you want to comment on a time frame that would be realistic for you guys?
Yeah, we'll need to circle back with the engineering firm, but as an engineer myself, I suspect we're going to be looking at like a 60-day turnaround to update plans and submit amended information to the commission for consideration.
Thanks, Matt. Commissioners, comments or a motion, please. I'm proceeding from here.
Corey still has her hand up.
Corey.
No, my apologies. I can lower it now.
Okay. All in favor of continuing, raise your hand, please. Okay, I see 2 hands. Is there hands for deny? Okay, I see some undecided. They've already expressed that they prefer not to withdraw. Jason, comment?
Yeah, Aaron, can you give us just a rundown as far as what the ramifications are of our potential decisions here of denying, extending?
So, right. So, if you, so I'm assuming that you're asking about ramifications of a denial. Is that what you're asking? Or are you talking about ramifications of continuation, or? What are you?
Well, we're denying the exemption for the 100-foot buffer.
Correct.
So what then we're asking for, if they're asking for a continuation,
Yes.
where does that get us? If we're denying, if we've already denied the 100-foot buffer, what is it then that we are also denying?
So if you continue, what you're doing is you're offering the applicant an opportunity to redesign the project to avoid the impacts that are currently proposed. And so that 60 days would give them an opportunity to explore alternative, essentially doing like an alternatives analysis to determine what additional opportunities there would be for them to complete the project in an alternative configuration. So that would be if you continue, and so I would anticipate that within a 60-day period, the applicant would come back with a revised plan concept and essentially run that by the commission to see if that revised concept is more in keeping with abiding by the bylaw. Does that does that help? Because the motion that Alex did was basically say that we're not going to grant a waiver or a variance, so to speak, of the 100-foot no disturb buffer that the
Right.
road is currently proposed to go through. So that is, an option. The continuation part associated with that would give them an opportunity to spend some time to revise.
Okay, and then if we deny, what specifically is it that we are denying then? And what are the ramifications of that?
We'd be denying the application, so they could come back with a brand new application. They'd have to go through the whole process of voter notification and all of that. So if it may be a similar process, a lot more difficult steps in between.
Right, and
And
if you were
the
going to
the RDA conversation that we're going to be having,
that's next. So yeah.
and is that tied to that denial then? Or is that a
No,
separate?
it's separate. So this is just under our local bylaw. The upcoming RDA is only under state regulation, so they're separated out.
Okay.
So relative to issuing a denial, I think if the commission is considering that they want to go that route, my guidance to the commission would be not to issue a motion to deny tonight. My guidance would be to just close the public hearing so that I can come up with a recommendation with language that would be appropriate to include in such a denial, which would basically be and outlining how the project doesn't comply with the local bylaw. As Tom alluded to, if the commission goes that route, there's an opportunity for the applicant to appeal the decision in Superior Court, which is very likely, I would presume. And so then, it would basically become a court decision between the commission's denial and the applicant's appeal.
Aaron, do you have a staff recommendation for whether you believe we ought to, what the most prudent thing would be to do?
I don't think we should put her in that position to make
Thank you,
us.
Bruce. I agree. I mean, I think
had my hand up for a
go
minute. I
ahead.
have
Go
something to
ahead,
say.
Andre.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with giving 60 days for them to regroup and figure out what they can do to prevent the impacts that they had proposed. And that would give them an opportunity to do their part, and then we would we'd address whatever changes that they're looking to do. I think it makes sense.
Thanks, Andre. Do you want to put forth a motion?
I move to continue this hearing for 60 days until
February 12th,
February
2025.
12th. Is that is that good with you guys, Tom and Matt and Corey?
One quick request of the commission before we move on that motion. So there was a vote to deny the issuance of the waiver. I think the project team would appreciate input from the commission on whether or not they're comfortable with the 100-foot no disturb as written in the bylaw and regulations, or there's intent to extend that so that the project team understands where the commission stands relative to those buffer zones.
That's a fair question.
I just made a motion. Sorry.
Okay, we have it right. I think that might come up in our next hearing, Matt. I don't know that we can answer that right now.
Michelle, if that's the case, can we request a continuance to December 18th? Because my concern is if we go through the effort of updating the plans to move that access road in some way, shape, or form, and we come back 2 months from now only to find out the commission has a desire to extend that buffer zone, we're just in the same position again.
Well, I guess we could take a show of hands of who feels inclined, but I mean, I guess that's the inclination of the commission right now, and some of this will also maybe come to light in our discussion of where the resource areas are and what's being acknowledged in the resource areas. So
What is it that Matt?
So he's referring to our bylaws, in our bylaws, we're able to consider extending the 100-foot buffer greater than the 100-foot buffer under consideration of wetland complexes, vernal pool complexes. So if we feel that there is ecological impacts to a wetland complex that need to have greater than 100-foot buffer, we have the ability to extend it as well as reduce it. Does that answer your question, Andre?
It does. I'm not ready to answer that, bro.
Yeah. I imagine probably most people aren't ready to answer that. Unless there's comment about that, please raise your hand, but go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, relative to Matt's question, I guess I just have a question, and this is for the project team. Have extensive wildlife habitat evaluations and amphibian surveys already been conducted where there is data that can be readily shared with the Conservation Commission right now, that would allow them on December 18th to have an opportunity to have something to review where information has already been gathered in the field that might give them some information from which to base a decision regarding extending the buffer on?
Aaron, would that be beyond the natural resource inventory that we've already provided to the commission?
Yes, that would be an in-depth on-site wildlife habitat evaluation of the wetlands to determine their presence or absence in the ponds, in the pools, in the wetlands, what species exist there, what their the extent of their presence is on the site, so that then the commission can use that to determine that information is typically with a project like this, you would collect that information and then that would be the basis for making a decision like this.
Right.
So I just
We
feel
don't
like
have that information, and there's no way we're going to get it in December and until March. So I think that's like something we have to keep in mind, what we have to work with right now, but they haven't done that. We know a little bit about the vernal pools, but there's no way we're going to have that sufficient information in the time frame that we're talking about. So yeah, I don't know the answer to your question, Matt. I don't think the commissioners can give you an answer to that. So I hear that you, in light of that, are requesting a December 18th hearing.
Yeah, because I think it's really important to at least have a sense of whether or not the commission intends to extend that before we do a redesign. So we don't want to waste everyone's time and efforts doing a redesign just to come back and find out the buffer wants to get extended to 120 feet, 125 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we'd know any differently then versus 60 days. Rachel, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Just noticed there was a hand raised in the public. Want to check if public comment is still open?
I'm already in this discussion, so I'm just gonna try and wrap this up. Aaron, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, has the applicant already put together some type of an alternatives analysis that would have various configurations of the access road and the setup, so that that would be readily shared with the commission on December 18th?
There are no specific alternatives that I'm aware of that were considered reasonable when this design was developed by the engineering team. The proposed alternative, or really the proposed path, was the one reasonable access to the eastern site in their opinion.
Okay, well, I think we've heard from the project applicant that they're requesting an earlier date. Do we have space in our agenda for that, Erin?
Uh, yes, but I just want to remind that there was a motion made by Andre, which is still sitting there for the 60 days. So that motion was made. I don't know if that motion was seconded, but that motion was made. So I just want to make sure if we're considering an alternative option, that we acknowledge that that motion was made and figure out what to do about it, because it's resting there before we move
Yeah.
on.
Okay, so we've come around full circle with that motion. Andre, would you like to amend the motion, having now heard from the project applicant?
So the idea then is that the applicants are looking to have a chance to talk to us again on the 18th in order to determine whether or not we're going to extend the buffer zone. Is that what this is?
That is my understanding of what Matt was requesting, yes.
So then we need to make our minds up on the 18th whether or not we'll extend the buffer zone.
Appears to be. Matt, do you have any more comments on your date? I think we're really needing to move this on, and we're open to what you guys are requesting for how much time you want, but before we move on with that motion, go ahead.
I was just gonna answer Andre's question.
Okay.
We're just looking for some feedback from the commission on the 18th, not necessarily that we expect the commission to be in a position to make a final decision one way or the other.
Does that help, Andre?
Yeah, somewhat. But I mean, we need they need 60 days, right?
He is actually asking for December 18th now. So
But once December 18th comes around, we're going to need another 60 days, aren't we?
I guess that depends on the outcome of that meeting.
I mean, we've already made that we've already denied the waiver, right? So you're still stuck with your 60-day your need to redesign your the access road, right? So you still need 60 days.
That's correct. We need time to design the access road. What I'm looking for is feedback from the commission on a desire or lack thereof to implement the option that the commission has to extend the buffer zone around the vernal pools and the isolated vegetated wetlands so that the project team is informed about the area the commission intends to take jurisdiction over before we go through the 60-day effort of redesigning the project.
I mean, frankly, we're not going to have any more information than we do today.
I'm just going to withdraw my my motion and let's see where it goes.
Okay.
My hand's up.
Oh, thank you. I can't see it in your background. Go ahead, Alex.
I understand that we probably can't decide whether we would extend the buffer around vernal pools tonight. And that you want some decision in the middle of December. And then apparently you would start your 60 days in the middle of December. So absent a decision, if we made an assumption that we might extend the buffer, would that help you? There is guidance for vernal pools according to what species are there on what buffers are useful for the various life stages. And without us making a definitive decision tonight, if we took a conservative approach, use that loosely, and say, for your planning purposes, if you assumed that we would that do away with the need for the December meeting and let you proceed starting now with your 60 days?
If the assumption came with a number, right? You know, whether if it's 201 feet, it's very different from if it's 125 feet.
I don't think we're not in a position to come up with a definitive buffer extension number, except that we do have some documents that have different buffers for different species beyond the 100 foot. But I thought maybe, okay, I won't talk about it anymore. Sorry, I thought maybe we could find a way forward.
Appreciate it.
I mean, looking at the map, I'm not sure extending it 120 versus 100 is, I mean, the access road isn't available either way, right? So it's edging in on some of those panels, but is that a significant design change for you if it's the difference of 20 feet?
Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
In the documents that I've read, some of those extended buffers go out 400 feet.
Yeah,
That depends on the species.
and those are species that are present. So part of the bylaw, what it talks about is when there's a vernal pool complex that have connectivity, and that's to support the ecology of the species and allow, you know, a healthy genetic movement and boom bust years, dry years, wet years to allow it to function as a metapopulation. And that's the point of this. And I mean, I don't see what 20 difference on a buffer is going to make a difference in this population of salamanders. But again, they're resilient species. So I mean, frankly, Matt, I feel like maybe 60 days, and why don't you use a 120-foot buffer and we go from there. We're not going to be telling you anything different on December 18th, and we can tell you tonight. That's
Okay.
just my
That's an honest
thought.
response, and we appreciate it.
I think that works. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, does any commissioners have any last comments on this one?
I agree with Michelle's approach.
I reinstate my my motion to allow 60 days until February, what was it, 12th?
February 12th at 7:30 p.m.
At 7:30 p.m.
Second.
Andre on a motion, Bruce on the second, Rachel,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Alex,
But
Andre.
I have a question.
We're gonna get through this motion first, or is it okay? Am I Jason? Did I get you? I'm an aye. Did I get everyone? Okay. All right. Thank you, Tom, Corey.
Thank you.
Matt.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Alex.
What happens if they don't finish the work and provide us something within 60 days? Should we have something in the motion about what happens if they don't come in at 60 days?
We deny or
That's a good point. I had suggested, you know, half an hour ago that we deny on the basis of not meeting performance standards, but that didn't make it into the motion that we just approved. So I don't actually know procedurally what that triggers. I would hope we don't have to discuss that, guys, but Erin, do you have a comment on that one?
Well, I think it's up to the commission. If
Okay.
you want to make another motion with that associated with it, you can, and then you know, vote to eliminate you could vote to get rid of the motion that was just made and make a new motion that replaces the motion that was made. So that's an option.
I propose that we cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay, so is that a motion?
No,
Or is that
no, it's not a motion.
okay?
It's
All right, so a non-motion. Alex,
would propose that we accept Andre's motion, but add on to it that if they fail to come in 60 days, then we deny.
Okay, if you'd like to do that, maybe put the motion on the table as a separate motion.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
We don't want to get I don't want us to get locked into doing one thing or another once we get there. Just like I didn't want to get locked into you know, how
But I'm trying to
whether or not
avoid
we're going to go
a whole series of continuations. That we do this in 60 days and not get into months and months and months of continuations.
Okay, we have two differing opinions from commissioners. Does any other commissioner want to put forth a comment on this? Or does someone want to? Alex, did you make a motion?
I make a motion that we grant a continuation of 60 days to, if I get the date, I think it's February 12 at 7:30 for the applicant to come back with additional information. And if they fail to do that, then we deny we deny.
Okay, motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'm doing pretty good tonight.
Okay, we don't have a second, so it looks like that motion does not pass. Jason.
Yeah, sorry. I'm still not necessarily comfortable with what it is that we're making motions for and asking them to bring it back to us. We've denied the 100-foot waiver. They're coming back with a
redesign
of the site.
Yes.
But so all they have to do is change one or two things and then that's acceptable? Like, what are we saying that if they don't bring to us in 60 days that we're going to deny? Like, if all they do is make one or two small changes, you know, are we asking them to change everything, only what is in that 100-foot buffer? Are we asking them to change only the access road?
Could I make a recommendation here? This is just sort of off the record, I guess, not off the record, but not in an official motion, but just some advice to the applicant to take the next 60 days to devise what I would call an alternatives analysis, come up with like 3 separate options for potential designs, bring that to the commission at the next meeting so that you can present, here are some options that we've come up with. And then you've got something to work on and we have something to expect. I don't think that it's likely that you're going to be able to redesign and redo the entire project. I think you have to kind of do some edits, come up with some conceptual ideas for consideration.
Thanks, Aaron. Andre?
Yeah, you know, I think in 60 days, when the 60 days are up on February 12th, we'll have an opportunity to look at this anew and look at whatever changes in the proposal the applicants are going to bring to us. We'll have an opportunity at that point to determine what we want to do. If they don't bring us any of that, if they don't redesign, we have the option also to either deny or to add extra time, like Alex was saying. But we'll have all those options in our hands, and we won't be locked into anything, and the applicant will have an opportunity to resubmit, which I think is fair. I guess I'm just repeating what I said before. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Okay, Rachel.
I'll say I appreciate everyone's comments here. And to the applicant, I would encourage you to look at the rare species, and the species that are in the habitat, and not take a number that you pull out of the air or someone tells you, but really dig into the needs of that species and look at your plans and think about what is a fair protective zone for those species, and then come back to us. I think that would be a good place to start.
All right. I think we're ready to move on to the next one. So we have our motion to continue. There was some discussion, and I think we'll see you guys, or at least Matt and Corey, in 60 days. We'll see you next next hearing. Okay, am I missing anything? Can I move on?
Vaughn, please.
Okay, hearing 3. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth and Act relative to the protections of the wetlands, and most recently amended, and Article 3.31, Wetlands Protection under Town of Amherst General Bylaws. This is a request for determination state only. Tetra Tech, on behalf of ASD Shutesbury Mass Solar LLC, requests to determine whether the area depicted on the plan/map is an area subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act, and whether the boundaries of the resource area depicted on the plan map are accurately delineated at 0 Shutesbury Road, map 9B, lot 11 and 12, and map 9D, lot 27. Okay, Erin, want to give us a 5-minute update here, or introduction?
Yeah. So I sent some concerns to Matt, a list of outstanding concerns, shared those outstanding concerns with the commission in the form of findings, essentially. Here is where I stand on this. I think I'm not going to be able to go verbatim, and I can certainly, share verbatim what my comments are if I need to. I think there are some issues with this RDA, starting with the fact that the commission requested an NOI back in May. I think there was logical rationale behind the request for the NOI, and I think that this RDA has teased apart why that rationale was necessary back in May, which is there was a number of resource areas which were not included in the ORAD, which are still not adequately, in my opinion, included on this application. I think there's issues with us confirming potential resource area boundaries that are off property that could potentially cast buffers onto this site. And considering that we are during a winter season and we are in a critical drought, that it makes it almost impossible for this commission within a 21-day period to turn around confirming that there are no buffer zones from offsite that are going to be impacting this work area. That's just one of a number of comments, but there were calculations that were requested for flood, for bordering land subject to flooding, which were not included in this application. There was documented flooding that I observed, that our consultants observed on site, which we still don't have mapped or boundaries of. We have vernal pools that were requested to have boundaries mapped in the previous iteration, which still have not been mapped. We have a intermittent stream with banks, which still have not been mapped. And just out on site, there's one riverfront flag on the plan, which delineates over 300 foot of riverfront delineation. I observed at least one offsite wetland that is within the outer riparian zone. So I have concerns, and I've expressed those concerns to DEP and also our town attorney, and the advice that I received was to issue positive on both so that the applicant could come back with a notice of intent. I think relative to the conversation we just had, this is probably a good plan for the applicant to have a positive determination on, because you might be coming back with a state NOI anyways, if you're going to be coming back with a proposal that's potentially impacting state buffers or resource areas. So that's my staff recommendation, and I'm happy to go into more sort of verbatim detail on my rationale for that if you need me to.
Thanks, Erin. Matt, do you want to give us the 5 minutes?
I'm going to give you about 10 seconds. We would request that the application for an RDA be withdrawn without prejudice at this time.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, well, there we have it. Do we need to close this public hearing? Okay, so it's withdrawn. Right. Thank you, Matt. I think that's it for you tonight.
That's it
All
for
right.
me. Thank you, everybody, for your time. We appreciate it.
Good night. We'll see you
Take care.
in 16 February.
Thank you for the site visit too.
My pleasure. It was a nice day to walk around in the woods. So
Yeah.
good to get out of the office every once in a while.
Yeah. All right. Tom, you're sticking with us again? All right. I'm gonna start having to call on you. Anyone else joining us? Okay. Bye, Steve. Are you here for this one too? Okay.
He's here. Maybe Phil Henry, Aaron,
Yeah.
if you want to have him join.
Are we moving to hearing 4?
We are. Okay, got everyone assembled. So this is hearing 4, Goddard Consulting LLC on behalf of U Drive Amity LLC for the demolition of 2 existing structures and associated infrastructure and construction of a proposed mixed-use development consisting of 2 buildings with associated parking, landscaping, and stormwater improvements at 25 to 35 University Drive and 422 Amity Street, map 13B, lots 18, 27, 28, and 54. Okay, Aaron, do you want to give us an update on this one? You're muted, Aaron.
Sorry. There's updated materials in your folders for OneDrive, but just to give you a little bit of background, after the last meeting, I did meet with the applicants and their engineer. I made a series of pretty substantive recommendations, all of which were basically incorporated into the plan as I requested. I'm very happy with the revisions to those documents. There was yesterday sort of just some last minute, or the day before maybe, some last minute adjustments, were some adjustments to erosion controls. I'm already sort of formulating orders of conditions for this, for some things that I want to be included, but I'm not fully prepared tonight with a fully drafted order of conditions for the commission. But just in we have 30,000 some odd square feet of buffer zone enhancements that have been proposed as part of this project. We went from a 30-inch corrugated culvert to a 15-foot by 2-foot open bottom box culvert for the entrance, which I'm very, very happy with. So I think that there have been quite a few improvements. They also added bioretention area and a water quality swale in lieu of the previous BMPs that had been proposed on the site. The one place where we were sort of doing some last minute discussions was relative to an in lieu fee payment, because we still have about 9,000 square feet. And you know, just in talking with Michelle, while, you know, these areas we would consider to be enhancements of the existing site, I think, you know, a lot of the enhancements are within existing stormwater systems, and so not really considering them one-to-one mitigation. So that additional 9,000 square feet came into discussion. Michelle and I did spend quite a bit of time in the last few days going through the mitigation calculator and using that, plugging in alternate values for this site based on the outstanding mitigation numbers. And I do have a dollar value, which I articulated to Tom Reedy really late this afternoon, which was about $21,000 going towards our in lieu fee account. So that is just a very brief synopsis of sort of where things stand.
Thanks, Erin. Tom, Philip, and Steve, do one of you want to take 5 minutes? Give us an update.
Yeah, and I'll probably be less than 5 minutes given the time. I think Erin hit the nail on the head. After last meeting, met with Erin, really great feedback, went out, did test pits. Bill updated the stormwater design. really redesigned it. So we've got a water quality swale, and what I'll do is I'll just share my screen quickly so I can kind of show you where those items are. So once you can see my screen, so we've got this area, which was a detention, maybe infiltration, is now a water quality swale. We've got bioretention here. We've got bioretention here. And we've got another swale over here along Amity. The open bottom culvert, it's 2 feet high, 15 feet wide by 35 feet long. That's going in this area. And then I will scroll down to the landscape plan because we've updated the mitigation. We talked to our landscape architect. We made sure that all the plants were climate resilient for the area that they're in, high wildlife value, pollinator, native. And so that's what we've got here is just an updated planting mitigation plan. You see in the swale, we've got some check dams here with native rounded stone. This is that culvert area. These are the one of the bioretention areas. Here's that other bioretention area. And you can see just the volume of planting that the proposal has at this point. We're not taking any credit for anything within here based on the chair's discussion last time, but we're taking credit for kind of the balance of the plantings, restoration, or trying to take credit for in the buffer zone. The only comment I would have to the pay in lieu calculation was not taking into consideration any of the existing disturbance within buffer zone on site currently. It's like you took as if it was 100% new. Existing, there's 29,000 rough numbers square feet of disturbance within buffer zones. We're increasing that by about 10,000 square feet to 39,000 square feet. And I know that you use the 39,000 square feet as that at that first number. We're proposing about 30,000 square feet of mitigation. So that's where that 9,000 square foot number comes in that formed the basis for the pay in lieu. That's really my only comment on the pay in lieu. And if the commission says this is what we're going to do, Tom, that's what you do. That's my only comment of it. Happy to get into more detail, but we really appreciate Erin's work to get us to this point. So thanks.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so we use that 9 for the pay in lieu. That's what was understood in that was the difference between already. I'm just trying to clarify we're on the same page with that. We didn't use 39, we used 9.
But the difference between, because so the way that we looked at it was, okay, there's existing disturbance on the site of about 29,000 square feet within the buffer. Post-development, there will be 39,000 square feet of impact within the buffer. And so the delta between those, because there's no mitigation for any of that stuff, the delta is 9,000. And we're saying we're proposing 30,000 square feet of mitigation. So in fact, we're doing like 3-to-1, where I think the commission looked at, forget about what exists. Let's just take 39,000 square feet of buffer zone impact. What are you proposing for mitigation? 30,000. So 39,000 minus the 30,000 gets to that 9. Instead of giving any credit for like new, like what are we doing over what exists? Like what is our impact over what exists now?
Okay, we can get into that. Bruce, go ahead.
Based on that discussion about square footage, mine seems small, but it's a very large tree. If you look at the word basin bottom, right in there, I was at the site visit, there is a gigantic tree that may or may not be entirely within the property boundary, but we spent a lot of time talking about how to protect it. And I just wonder if that all survived.
There you go. So, and I should have called that out, but yes, that 48-inch willow is going to remain. We called that out.
Okay, and so it's protected as best you can under the plan.
Correct.
That's all I wanted. Thank you.
Sure. Great, thank you. Erin.
So I just, relative to Tom's comment, because I think that this is we want to be fair, and we definitely don't want this to appear that we're being arbitrary in any way with like sort of how we're designing this. So just by comparison with a recently approved project where there was encroachment on the 50-foot no touch zone, which this project does go into, and we've got encroachment here up to 12 feet away from the wetlands, we had a 4-to-1 at Emily Dickinson. So Emily Dickinson Carriage House project. So this is 3-to-1, which I think you guys have done a fantastic job with what you have. Just saying, like, trying to compare project to project, which we do try to do on the best basis that we can. I think what we have before us is a very permittable, very well articulated project that would give the commission the ability to approve this as a redevelopment project, and consistently with other projects where we've required substantial mitigation for those encroachments.
Yeah, and I hope I'm on the same page with this accounting, but how we worked with this was that the mitigation on site we considered that to be more of like an ecological lift, and we took the monetary credit for the cost of that and subtracted it from the total in lieu fee cost for that 9,000 plus. So the 9,000 plus in lieu fee cost was something like $58,000. So then we subtracted your contributions for the restoration on site from that. So that was our rationale.
And I get it. It's just, so I guess my point is, if we were coming in and this site there was nothing, and maybe this is Aaron's point about the 4-to-1, but if we were coming in and we disturbed 39,000 square feet, and then we were proposing 30,000 square feet of mitigation, I can see that as, okay, now there's 9,000 square feet. How do we solve for that? Now, maybe that's 1-to-1, and that's what Aaron's saying is 1-to-1 would not be sufficient. And so what we're doing here, and if I see Aaron nodding ahead, so I can stop if that's the rationale behind it, because just like in my mind, I'm saying, well, we've already disturbed 29,000 square feet. We're only disturbing 10,000 extra square feet. Why are you counting like 100% of that new disturbance? And now we're paying, $55,000 minus all this other stuff. That was where I was coming from versus like a brand new project. But if you're looking at it to say, if it was brand new, we'd be talking 3-to-1, 4-to-1. I can buy that. So I see Aaron nodding her head, which might be enough.
Okay.
That's pretty much exactly.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay, if there's any public comment, please raise your hand. I'll go to Alex next.
Yeah, the last time we met, I brought up the idea of offsite mitigation. And the feedback I got from Tom and others was that we could talk about that. And I don't know if you did, but I think there's property up around Tan Brook that we'd like to see protected. And I'd like to put on the table the idea of foregoing the money and protecting that property up on Tan Brook.
And so we talked, if I could through the chair, we talked
Yes,
about
please.
it. There's likely to be a proposed project on that site where we'll look to preserve Tan Brook as probably mitigation and offset, right? So we're using that for something else, so I don't want to use it for this, if you will. But the intent is, big picture, to preserve that area, just not through this project.
I got it. Okay. Excuse me, when will that other project come along? Is that like in the next year or?
I think so. We'd probably be through permitting, or we'll try to be through permitting. I'd say in 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other commissioner comments, questions? I see no public comment. Okay, so we are looking, Aaron, I think you're bringing up our motion. So there it is, looking for a motion to close the public hearing tonight.
I move to close.
I move to close the public hearing for 25-35 University Drive and 422 Amity Street parens DEP number 089-0744, close parens.
Second.
Alex on the motion, Bruce on the second, Jason,
Aye.
Rachel,
Abstain.
Alex,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, thank you all. Looks
Thanks.
good out there. Thanks for taking all the comments into consideration. We really appreciate that.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Are you saying good night to all of us?
Not yet, I'm
We're
sorry.
hopeful.
I
We can
think
go
these
really
ones,
fast from
yeah,
here, I think.
we can, yeah. So unfortunately, these folks had to wait till the end. All right, so this is Niche Engineering, an NOI for Niche Engineering on behalf of Wayfinders Inc. for the demolition of 2 existing residential dwellings and construction of a new proposed residential building with associated site and utility improvements, including parking and stormwater management at 7280 Belchertown Road, map 15C, lots 58, 59, and 60. Okay, Erin, staff update, please.
Yes, I did pull in the applicant's representative on this, and I think we can go really quickly on this one. So to give you a little bit of background, I did request revisions on this one. The revisions did come back. I am satisfied with the revisions that have been made. There were some very last minute updates to the operation and maintenance plan, but we were able to get those in order for the meeting tonight. So I have all the documents that I need in order to issue the order of conditions. I did share a draft with the applicant, and we did some iterations of conditions, which I think everybody's happy with at this point. So at this point, I am ready to close the public hearing and issue the order of conditions. And that's where things stand. Everything's drafted and in your folders.
Thanks, Erin. Joshua, James, do you want to comment?
Probably unnecessary at this time. As Erin stated, we last met, it was October 9th, I believe, our previous meeting. We had requested a continuance so that way we could make some updates as we were progressing through the ZBA comments as well. I think the biggest hiccup was incorporating the invasive species management plan into our operation and maintenance manual, which we worked closely with Erin and our environmental subconsultant as well to get that hashed out. But otherwise, yeah, I think we had provided a comprehensive update a couple months ago, and it was just a matter of getting back on the meeting agenda.
Thanks, Josh. If there's any public comment, please raise your hand. Commissioners, any questions or comments before we move to close and issue order of conditions? Okay, I'm seeing none from either room, so I'm looking for a motion.
It's a lot of words. I move to close the public hearing and issue order of conditions for 72-80 Belchertown Road, DEP number 089-0740, with the standard boilerplate conditions under both the Mass Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Protection of Town of Amherst General Bylaws, Article 3.31, and regulations, with the noted additional conditions.
Second that.
Alex on the motion, Jason on the second, Rachel,
Abstain.
Jason,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Okay, well, that was nice and short. Thank you, Josh, and James, thanks for hanging in there through all
got
that. All right,
you.
look out there.
Thank you.
Night.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
Right, next up, a notice of intent for SLR International Corporation on behalf of the town of Amherst for the improvements to the Amherst Regional High School track and field facilities and associated site work at 21 Mattoon Street, map 11D, lot 81, 270, and 215. Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I'm going to not participate in this hearing.
Okay, thank you, Alex. You just put your hand up, so.
Sorry.
Okay, Erin, do you want to please give us a staff update?
Yes, so the applicant has submitted revisions to me based on my previous comments. And there was one outstanding comment which came from Rachel pertaining to a test pit, which is proposed in one of the stormwater systems. I guess there had been some previous averaging of test pit depth to groundwater distances that had been used to account for the groundwater depth at the location of the specific stormwater system. My understanding is the project has been designed based on the averages at this point, but the town is proposing to do a test pit later this week, at which point they'll be able to finalize to know, you know, more accurately the groundwater depth. And if a redesign is necessary, they would come back to us to address or adjust the plan accordingly. But my understanding is that they are prepared to move forward tonight with us issuing an order of conditions. I do have an order of conditions drafted. I've shared it with the applicant. They've reviewed it and given me feedback, and I've made edits accordingly. So you guys have the final version of the order of conditions in your folder, and it's I'm ready with a motion to approve this tonight if you're ready to do that.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, Mike and Heather. One of you like to give an update? And if there's any public comment, please raise your hand now.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much, and I will be very brief. You know, we've been working diligently to address your comments, and we wholly intend to conduct test pits. They were actually scheduled for tomorrow morning, but because of our impending snowstorm that's on the way, those are going to be undertaken probably early next week at this point. So we're actually proposing 2 test pits at the site of the infiltration system.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, Commissioners, I see Bruce's hand up. Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm looking at the comment from the fire department, and I wondered if I didn't see that in the order of conditions, maybe because it's not our job to do that.
Yeah.
You just said, okay, so.
That's a good point. And that comment did come in like pretty much just in the last day or so. So the comment was from the police or from the fire department that they use the parking lot that's adjacent to the school between the field and the school for fire response. And they basically stated that during construction that would need to be accessible to the fire department, and that was a condition that they stated that they would need during construction of the field. I don't know if they've communicated that to you or not.
Bob, go ahead.
Certainly. Thank you, Erin. The very same comment was submitted to the planning board, and you may know we met with the planning board this evening and received approval from the planning board this evening. That was acknowledged, and we have committed to complying with the requirements of the fire department.
Okay.
Okay, any other commissioner comments, questions? Okay, I see no public comment. So, in which case I'm looking for a motion.
I'll do it. I move to close the public hearing and issue order of conditions for 21 Mattoon Street, DEP number 0890745, with the standard boilerplate conditions under both the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Protection Town of Amherst General Bylaws, Article 3.31 and regulations, with the noted additional conditions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Jason? Okay, Bruce on the motion, Jason on the second, Rachel?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
And did I get everybody that's voting?
Yep.
I think
Okay.
Andre may have been the second, but I'm not sure. Not Jason.
Jason, were you the second or was Andre the second?
I think we were tied, but
Oh, okay.
more than
Whatever
willing
you
to
already have
allow
written,
Andre
No
to
worries.
have
No
the
worries.
Yeah, we were
honor of
both,
being second.
Okay.
both
Perfect.
yelling at the same time.
Okay. All right. Thanks for hanging in there, guys, and looking forward to seeing that track out there.
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Okay, commissioners, other business. We need to issue an order of conditions.
Yes.
Shall we do that first?
So this is the Southeast Street. It's actually the East Street School project that the hearing was closed, I want to say 2 meetings ago now, but at the last meeting we didn't have a quorum to be able to issue it. The order of conditions is drafted. It's been in your folders now for I think 3 meetings, and it's ready to go. It's the standard boilerplate with some additional special conditions.
Okay, looking for a motion.
I will move to issue order of conditions for 31 Southeast Street, DEP number 089-0741, with the standard boilerplate conditions under both the Mass Wetlands Protection Act with the noted additional conditions.
Second.
Jason on the motion, Andre on the second, Rachel, Jason,
Aye.
Bruce,
Aye.
Andre,
Aye.
Alex. Alex, are you back with us? All right. Do we have our quorum without Alex?
Yes,
I think so.
we do.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So Michelle, I'd just like to check in with you really quickly. The certificates of compliance are tabled for tonight
Yeah.
because we are all done with those. Now we have 3 emergency certifications on the docket for tonight. If the commission has had enough and we want to push those to the next meeting, that is completely fine. I just want to offer that as an option because I know that everybody's fatigued at this point.
I'm up for just getting this done unless you anticipate it taking more than 15 minutes. But if anybody would like to move to adjourn, that's up to you.
I will do it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis on each of these, and then we can approve them together collectively or individually, however you want to move it. So there's there were 2 beaver-related flooding issues, one on West Pomeroy Lane and one on Sunderland Road. The West Pomeroy Lane situation, both of these requests came from DPW. West Pomeroy Lane, there is a beaver dam which is about 20 feet south of the West Pomeroy Lane culvert, and water was being backed up pretty significantly, and so an emergency certification was issued to breach that dam so that water could flow and release some of the pressure that was building up behind the dam. Sunderland Road is a little bit more of an unusual situation. In this situation, there had been a previous upstream beaver dam which had breached, I think naturally at some point in time, and basically clogged the culverts under Sunderland Road, and also washed through and deposited a large amount of debris at the outlet point of Sunderland, the Eastman Brook going under Sunderland Road. I know that beavers are very active in that location, and I'm sure that they had rebuilt, following that situation, but the culverts were blocked to the point they weren't flowing, and water coming out of the culverts on the outlet side was restricted, and it was really starting to cause a problem. So DPW, we're going to proceed with this work as just maintenance work, and just in an overabundance of caution, we issued an emergency certification to make sure that everything was okay with them doing the clean out of the beaver debris from the culvert and at the outlet point of the culvert. So those are the 2 beaver flooding issues. And then 133 Bay Road has been an ongoing issue with the residents. And flooding issues have happened in the residents' basement, and some issues related to high groundwater pertaining to their septic. This is one of our commissioners, so it's not really, all the information is in your folder. There was a directional drilling situation that needed to be done because the existing drainage situation was failing, and they needed to get the water under the road to the other side of the road to basically get the system functioning again. So those are very brief explanations, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Erin. Alex.
With regard to the Sunderland Road, they did remove all the debris on the downstream side of the road, except for what was about 25 feet downstream from there. Maybe the equipment couldn't reach. But they left the beaver dam on the upstream side, and the beavers have dammed the culvert. I didn't know why they left the beaver dam on the upstream side of the culvert.
Is that a question?
Yeah.
Erin, Dave, do you know?
My understanding was that it was DPW's goal to make the culvert flow again, to basically just be able to get water flowing through the culvert. I don't know if they opened it up and then the beavers rebuilt, or if this was they just did what they had to do to get the water moving again.
The beaver dam, it's hard to call it a dam. It's a pile of sticks that does raise the water level. It doesn't block the culvert. There's still water flowing out of the culvert, but they left it alone and they just removed the stuff on the downstream side. I actually thought that was good because it's a hard time of year to remove a beaver dam because beavers can't go someplace else at this time of year. So I thought it was great that they left the beaver dam on the upstream side, but I was just curious if there was an explanation why.
I don't think either one of us has that explanation, but kudos to DPW for doing what they asked us to do on the downstream side, and they didn't do anything on the upstream side. They might come back. Who knows?
Yeah, so I looked at it prior to their work, and there was a lot of stuff piled up, but the culvert was actually running. So it seemed like what they were doing was just removing beaver debris, and I didn't, which is great. But anyway, that's enough. I don't know why they did what they did. Or I don't know why they didn't remove the beaver dam on the upstream side, but I thought it was good of them. It's a bad time of year to be removing a beaver dam.
Glad that worked out.
Yeah.
Potentially or not. Bruce.
I want to thank our colleague for her extensive memo that makes sure that things are documented as to why a commissioner needed this emergency. And it was pretty clear, and I just want to thank you.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any further questions on either West Pomeroy, Sunderland Road, or 133 Bay Road? Bruce, is your hand up again?
No, sorry.
Well, you have the floor if you want to make a motion.
Let's see. I move to ratify the emergency certification for West Pomeroy Lane, Sunderland Road, and 133 Bay Road as a group.
Second.
Okay, Bruce on the motion. Was that Andre on the second?
Yep.
Bruce.
Aye.
Andre.
Aye.
Jason.
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Rachel.
I would advise that Rachel recuse herself on this.
Yeah, I was just getting it on the record, so Bruce knows that.
Sorry, I said abstain.
Yes.
Do I say recuse or abstain? Is that the same?
Either one, I think, is fine.
Okay, I got it.
And I'm an aye. Okay, we did it. I just want to say, okay, if there's any public comment, please raise your hand. I just want to know from commissioners, because I never know exactly how to gauge everybody's familiarity with some of the ecology stuff that we deal with. And thank you, Rachel, for sending out the vernal pool information. That was a really good resource, that specific organization. But since we are talking about vernal pools increasingly, I was just wondering, with show of hands, is there anybody that could use sort of more information about how to think about pools, ecology of the species, and a complex, like in relation to interpreting our bylaw? Or is what Rachel sent out pretty good? I think it was pretty good, but if people would like more information about some of the ecologically based stuff relevant to our bylaw, I'm happy to find some resources, and I'm sure everybody has their own resources too. I see lots of hands. Are they comments? Jason?
No, I would love more.
Okay.
Information is always helpful.
Okay, great. Bruce?
Basically the same, except that we have the virtue of having different people have different types of expertise. We don't all have to be experts about everything.
Right, Alex?
Yeah, anything you want to share, would love to learn. I'm learning a lot from you all.
Yeah, I just realized during this meeting that a lot of information was coming from public comment, and I don't particularly find my role as to, educating about the background during a meeting. So I'd rather at the forefront sort of just give you guys basis of knowledge for these kinds of things, but I don't know what you already know. So I've heard a bit, so enough that I can start thinking about some easy ways to communicate some of that information relative to interpreting our bylaws. Alex, did you have a comment?
No matter what our background, more information is always useful.
Yeah, it's just we have a lot in our folders sometimes, and I don't want to be overwhelming, but yeah, okay. Well, heard you. Thank you for the feedback and for sticking with this really difficult agenda. So thanks for the good work, everyone. And I see no further public comment.
Rachel, I found that to be really helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, Jason, put a motion on the table to adjourn.
Second.
Jason on the motion, Andre in the second. Rachel?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Bruce?
Aye.
Alex?
Aye.
Andre?
Aye.
All right, good night, everyone.
Great
Thank you.
job, guys.
Hold on, Andre.
Oh.